Let's go. Okay. Get excited. We got the legendary Al Santillo of Santillos Pizzeria Bakery place in Elizabeth, New Jersey. They got like a 110-year-old oven. Al is a legend in the industry, a Elizabeth, New Jersey native, and one of our favorite people in the world. And it's great to have you on, Al. How are you? Good to see you, buddy.
Glad I made it over here.
I'm glad you made it to Brooklyn too. So, how old's the oven over at your pizzeria?
About 120.
120 years old. And you were telling me stories about it. You said that they had to like cut the bricks with their hand. You want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah,
Tell me about the oven.
I'll tell you, the oven is the greatest thing in the world. It's still state-of-the-art, the oven. When they built this oven, it's just in the ceiling alone, over 5,000 bricks.
Wow.
Every brick is turned this way.
Okay.
So when you need 9.5 bricks just to make 1 little square foot of ceiling.
Jesus. That's great. And it's like a vaulted ceiling, too. It's not flat.
It's like a true Roman arch. There's no mortar in there holding it.
No mortar.
No mortar, just the bricks hold themselves up like a Roman arch. And what else is I gotta tell you? It's a low arch. It's supposed to be the perfect dimensions for an oven. Like certain brick ovens that you can still get them with like a high dome ceiling, but this one's supposed to be better. The ceiling's only about this high in there.
Right.
But with the all those bricks in the ceiling, that's how it holds the heat. People don't understand this. I heat up the oven, and then I get rid of the heat source. Then I just cooked off the retained heat of the bricks. And I could cook for a long, long time like that, hours and hours.
It actually does make perfect sense because I've been doing a lot of studying on ovens lately, and the thermal mass of your oven must be completely out of control. Why am I sounding weird all of a sudden? What'd you change? Change something, Brady?
Feedback.
Trying to make his audio sound good.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I guess it's important, right?
I'm hearing a lot of feedback.
A lot of feedback, yeah. I'm all of a sudden, I'm like loud. There you go, Brady. Anyway, thermal mass is like a really important thing. And I never understood this. I just started looking it up recently. But the thermal mass of your oven must be like out of fucking order. We should get like one of these scientisty engineering guys down there and be like, hey, guy, do me a favor over here. Like, just go measure the thermal mass for me. Why don't you? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable. When you talk about green, everything's green, environmental. Once you heat it up, you could turn the heat source off. It was called. I converted it over to gas. Once that thing is hot, you not really using that much fuel for how big it is because it holds the heat.
Right.
So instead of all the heat going up into the atmosphere like a normal oven, the heat goes in and up the chimney, So, no, I definitely see that. Yeah. So what's like the history of Santillos? Did your family start this place and how did that go? What was this place 120 years ago? Okay, when they built the place, my family was only the second owners of the building. So the first owner, the guy's name was Paul Poth. He was a German baker.
Okay.
So when I was a kid, all the equipment was still there that my father bought off the first guy. So we were still using some of that, but I was always in love with like the old-fashioned way of doing everything because I was always taught that the quality was better.
Right.
And then after doing it, you see that the quality is better. And what they were doing back then, they wanted things crustier. A lot of times they have a better crust. You'd have a better bake all the way through. And then it would give you better flavor and better texture, and you're getting a better finished product. He had these certain pans. You could still get them if you look for them, maybe used, but you made a round bread, like a cylinder, and then the bottom was a cylinder, and then the top was a cylinder, and it was about this big, and you closed it and you latched it down. And then the bread rose up inside there. When it finished...
Inside the pan?
Yeah, but it was the pan on the top and the bottom.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like Dutch oven cooking. That's what like a lot of these sourdough guys, they'll take like a Dutch oven and they'll put it in. You ever see that?
Yeah, I see what they do. But this is a different type of a pan.
Mm-hmm.
When the bread comes out, it's about this big and it looks like a cylinder.
Okay.
And with all little grooves on it.
Right,
They
but
used to sell bread like that in a supermarket years ago, and you would put butter on there. Oh, it was out of this world.
so you're saying there was a German baker that built the oven in what, 1900?
Between 1900 and 1920. Nobody knows for sure.
Nobody knows for sure.
No, because nobody's left. I mean, I was looking into like the yellow pages from 1940. It was already there in 1940. So
Okay.
and then when the building was built, they built the building, but nobody knows exactly the date. But we know the neighborhood, like the building next door, was built in 1909. This looks like it goes with that building. Looks like
Right.
it's the same piece. When you go to my pizzeria, the building to the left, if you look down, they look like this built the same way.
Got it. So then what happened? Like your father took it over, or your
here's what happened.
grandfather, or what was it?
My grandfather came here in 1912.
Mm-hmm.
Then he was working for this baker named Novello.
Okay.
Novello, when you went in his bakery, he had all certificates hanging on the wall. He had went to school for that over in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
So when he came over here, a lot of the young guys, he taught them how to make all that stuff. So Novello taught them, and then they went around and opened up their own places.
And where was this guy Novello?
Well, there's an Italian part of town in Elizabeth called Peterstown or the Burg. So he was on, say, 312 Center Street. And my grandfather wound up buying that piece of property off him. And it was the coolest thing because the bakery was right here. And right on this corner was the Catholic Church. And right across the street, he had like one of those things, like a little farm stand. And when the people came out of the church, he would have the bread right there ready to sell them off the little farm stand.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That kind of sounds like today how a lot of guys are making bread over at the farmers markets and stuff. So you're saying your grandfather worked for this guy Novello and then he bought the building from him? Is that correct?
Right.
And then he started baking his own bread?
I don't know if he bought the building. I know he bought the business.
Okay.
And then he had his own building built. I don't know if you know much about Elizabeth.
I don't know nothing about Elizabeth.
Okay.
Teach me.
Okay, there's a famous place there, been since 1915, on the corner of 4th Ave and High Street, the Cosmos Italian Ice, still like world famous.
And they're still there?
Yeah. And then
Talk into the mic over here.
He's on this corner, and Santillo's on this corner. So it was predominantly like 90% Italian. So they didn't. You didn't really need a car back then. People don't understand how people lived back then. When they see these old pictures of New York, nobody had a car 100 years ago. They walked or they took the trolley car.
Right, yeah. They used to have those street cars back in the day.
And my grandfather, he didn't even have a vehicle. He had a horse and buggy. They still had horse and buggies back then. You didn't have a car. You had to get a horse and buggy for $2.
So he was running this bakery, and they were predominantly like cooking bread.
Yeah, he only did bread, and then my father went away to World War II, and my father came back in 1944, and he came back, and his father was making pizza. So, whatever happened, my father never saw pizza before that in his life.
Okay.
And that I asked my father, what is this tomato pie about? Because even on our billhead it says crispy Italian bread, Italian tomato pie, and that was from his father that had it in the 50s. They called it tomato pie back then.
Wait, say that one more time. Tacras? You said?
Crispy Italian bread
Okay.
and tomato pie.
Okay.
You still got a lot of feedback. It's getting worse.
Yeah.
Can you turn that down a little bit? Thanks. That was blowing my head out. Turn it down a little.
Well, do you want him to talk closer to the mic, like a fist away? Yeah, like just bringing a fist away. It's all good.
Okay, so anyway, let me just finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
So he said to me, when he was young, the Italians called the pizza con pomodoro. They didn't even call it tomato pie. It was pizza con pomodoro, which is pizza with tomato.
Mm-hmm.
So then the translation was pizza pie or tomato pie.
Okay. So pizza pie or tomato pie. So that's when he came back from World War II, and that's when he started cooking. And this is not in the same location as Santillo's is. This is at your grandfather's bakery.
Died in 1957. My father opened up. My grandfather died in 59. My father started at this location where I'm at now in 57. So for a couple of years, there was 2 Santillos in Elizabeth. Then my grandfather died. He was just almost 65. So I'm going to be almost that old. They had a lot harder back then, those guys.
Right.
So he was done by 65, and he worked almost to the day he died. He died of leukemia. So he worked up to about 2 weeks before he died, and whatever, he died in 59, so I grew up, they were still talking about him every day like he was going to come back.
Right.
And they told me the story. They cut his head over here to let the cancer drip out of his head. That's the only, they had no treatment at all. And he used to walk around with a napkin and dab the cancer that was dripping out of his head.
That's crazy.
Tough.
Yeah.
And you're going to work. And this is how tough they were. He did 3 pails in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. 3 pails in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. So now you have to translate what that means. Every pail of water, he got 50 loaves of bread. So he made 150 loaves of bread in the morning. When he was done with that, he made another 100 loaves of bread. Then when he was done with that, he'd make another pail for that night, and that's what he'd make all his pizzas out of. Back then, they only made one size pizza. I might go back to that before I'm done. He had one size pizza, a 14-inch round pie. That was it. You wanted more pizza? Buy 2 or 3 of them. None of this, a bigger pie and a smaller pie. Don't make no sense. Make one size, buy more of them.
So when Santillo's open, was there other pizzerias in
there was
Elizabeth?
Maybe only about 2 or 3 other pizzerias. My father always was proud to say Santillo's was the first pizzeria in Elizabeth to deliver, and the first pizzeria in Elizabeth to use heating equipment. He was like an inventor. So those bricks that are in the oven, he had like a wooden box made, like a big wooden milk box, and he put the bricks in there from the oven that were hot, and then he would put the pizza in there and put it, and he had like a truck, and he would deliver it in that.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Yeah. And when did you start seeing like the gas ovens, like the
well,
you know, the
always around all my life. They had already been invented, like when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But,
so there were places that were doing that.
They always felt like they weren't going to give up with the brick oven because that's what America was supposed to get. They felt like if they could charge enough and they could make enough, and the people would see how good the quality is, they would pay more, and they would have their niche with those brick ovens.
Yeah, of course. I mean, even today, if you have access to like a giant brick oven, you know what I'm saying, you're obviously going to take that over. You know
I mean? Because you have to have a guy that's specially trained to do that oven. Like, see, what I'm doing with that oven, nobody could come and do what I'm doing because I made it so complicated already. And how much I could put in there at one time. Like, I could put 35 pies or 30 in there at one time and juggle them all and get them all out in time. But if you just took an average guy working at a pizza place, he can't do that.
Right.
I mean, like, maybe you could train him, but nobody wants to work. That's the problem. That's real hard work. Now you're trying to make, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, premium product. You're trying to make a premium product. That's why you're trying to make a premium. But nationwide, the money is in mass producing cheap products and selling them for less. This is what the country went to.
Right.
Even if you try to make it a little better and try to sell it for even $1 or $2 more, these big corporations know that they're going to undersell you, and the people are going to like the cheaper price. Even though the stuff's no good, they'll buy it 10 times because it's $10, then go to get yours that's 20, that's better. Not saying you can't, it's not a niche for you, but you're never going to have 5,000 locations.
Right, but at the same time, like, the country's definitely changing, like, as far as like wanting quality. I mean, now you have bakeries that are popping up all over the place that are selling $10 loaves of bread, and they're selling out every single day. You know what I'm saying? All around, from San Francisco to L.A. to New York to
I don't
New
know
Jersey.
how many of them there really are. You know what I mean? I hear about it,
Well,
but I
they're
don't see
new.
it.
Well, they're all within the past. Most of them are within the past 10 years, and now there's a real explosion right now because all these people learned how to make sourdough bread. During the pandemic, and now they're all.
Well, I wish them all a lot of luck, but I'm just gonna tell you that it's hard to beat the mass-produced product. Here's how the country went. You could go. I mean, I've been following this all my life. This was happening since I was a kid already. But as far as it already happened with the bread. Even though you're saying like this and that.
Well, that's all new.
Yeah.
No, I understand exactly. Like in the 50s, it was absolutely everything was going towards
cheaper,
faster, cheaper, more convenient.
Yeah.
And whatever that meant, those were the things that went in. All I'm saying is now you're seeing like a little bit of a shift where, you're seeing guys, whether it's true or not, but they're claiming, the guys that are expanded, claiming to be quality. They're claiming to be behind, yada, yada, yada. And I mean, if you think about telling a guy that a loaf of bread is $10 10 years ago, even 10 years ago, they'd be like, have you lost your marbles?
What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. So, it's definitely, so you were talking about all right, so your father started the place in 57, right? And he's got the coal oven. Yeah. When do you start making pizza, and what was the pizzeria like? What was kind of like the type of things that they were serving?
Oh, some guy came in. His name is Vito Calamus. He was one of my father's best customers. He had like an Italian store. Remember I told you 67 was the height of when the Italians were immigrating over here.
Right. So, we were talking about that the other day.
My father used to be able to sell as much bread as he could make. When you went to Calamus's store, the Italians would all be outside waiting for you to come. You didn't even have to bring it in. They were already out there. The Italians have to have their bread. They're addicted to bread.
Yeah.
They got to have it every day. They can't, they're not going nothing until they get their bread. I'm the same way. I can't live without my bread. I got to have it. So I was going to show you a picture of Vito. He came in, he's 84. He did 30 years there, and then they had to give up because the neighborhood was changing already. If you don't have enough Italians around or the people that's going to want that, you can't sell that kind of stuff.
Right, 100%.
Same thing. If Whole Foods opens up and he's selling all the same Italian stuff that you got, whatever the cheese brand is or the pepperoni brand is, he's going to be able to undersell you.
Oh, yeah,
just like Home Depot put every hardware store out of business, and there's not even none of them left.
Right. Yeah, there's very few. Shout out to one of the last, Crest Hardware, my boy Joe. Joe killing it. They got a pig in the backyard. I got to take you over there. You ever been there to Crest Hardware?
Well, around here?
In Brooklyn, yeah. It's in Williamsburg. My boy Joe owns it, and they have a pig named Franklin in the back. It's a giant, independently owned hardware store.
Yeah, I had a friend that had you know how he got the license to have pigs in Elizabeth? He had it say that he had like a little circus, like that he took it around to the kids for birthday parties. Mm-hmm. He'd have a pig and a boat and a little donkey. And that's how he got to keep them. Otherwise, you couldn't keep them in Elizabeth.
And what was he doing with the pigs? Was he turning them into prosciutto?
No, he would just keep them, take them to little birthday parties. Say you had a kid's birthday party.
A petting zoo.
There you go.
Yeah.
He had a petting zoo. That's what he was doing.
So you say your father used to sell to this guy? Hold on.
Here he is, look.
Yeah.
Look how good he looks. 84 years old. God bless him.
So this is a guy
That's Vito Calamus.
So Vito Calamus
was one of the originals. One of the originals right there. Show him. Tell him that's Vito Calamus. He deserves it.
Vito Calamus. There he is.
There you go. The Moose. One of the Elizabeth originals. They're from Sicily, and they had the store. Like if they closed in '84, that means they had opened in 1954.
And what was it, like a pork store? They sold like all Italian specialties and bread and everything.
It wasn't just pork. You could get everything there, but his
cheeses, charcuterie.
He had the biggest cheese. He had a cheese in there like the size of like a rocket ship. You couldn't even get in the door.
What kind of cheese was that?
Big thing of provolone. That was
a big provolone.
Their national cheese.
Right.
And then his claim to fame was his veal cutlet. He had the milk cut veal. Give me that bottle. And that's what I was
one?
talking to that guy, Otto Morelli. He came in for pizza. He's got a butcher shop on 84th in York.
Okay.
Otto Morelli. I was talking to you. I'm going to go see him. But I can still show you how the Calamus did it. He put the veal down, and he had a little thing like this, and he'd go like this, and he'd go like this, and he'd take it just like this till it was paper thin. And then when you took that and you breaded it, it was like out of this world.
You think you could make that for me, Al Santillo?
I can't make. I don't have that tool.
What was it? It was like a cylinder.
It was veal cut. It looked like. Did you ever see those little weights that the weightlifters have?
Yeah.
It looked like a real little one of them, like a little barbell, but tiny, like a 1 pounder. And he would just take it and go like this. I'm gonna talk to Otto Morelli and see if he's got it. But even when I went to supposed to be the #1 butcher shop in New Jersey, I explained everything I wanted. You know what the guy did? He took out one of them little meat things, goes, hit it like that, done. He after I went through the whole spiel about it. He said, "Yeah, I could do it." He says, and "That's it, done."
Yeah, so he didn't want to hear it.
Yeah, or he just wasn't comprehending it. Just one in one ear and out the other.
Yeah, I feel like I've almost seen something like that somewhere before. It almost look like the for the espresso machine, the little press that you press down the coffee with? Was it like a fat one of those, a heavy one of those?
I can't picture what you're talking about, but it's exactly what I'm telling you. It looks like a little 2-pound barbell.
It was like
I never see the butchers with it anymore. But anyway, this Otto Morelli was saying you could do the same thing with the jus de pomme. You can pound it real thin, and they wrap it around a piece of melon.
So was this the kind of thing that was so he was famous for that, and then that's like an espresso tamper.
Okay, yeah, it looks almost just like that.
It almost looks like that, right? I've seen these before, but for the meat.
He's got a couple different sizes.
Right.
But basically that's it. But the thing was the technique. You had to take it and go hit it and go like this and spread it out.
And to
tenderize
almost
it.
push it.
Yeah.
Like he was like pushing it, or he was spinning it,
he was
like spinning it,
turning it, hitting it. And I used to sit there and watch him while he did it. But
and that was like the best veal
Yeah,
ever.
he put it on like a piece of wax paper, and he'd do it on top of the wax paper.
Okay, guys, I'm really, really sorry, but we got to take a quick break because we're having air conditioning issues, and I got to go handle this before we continue. We'll be right back.
Want to go get some air?
Let's go get some air. Yeah, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with the microphone. All right, are we back?
We are.
Okay, we're
back.
We are back.
How about let me try this? See once. How's that?
you all right.
Just testing.
So we were talking about
Vito Calamus.
Vito Calamus and the veal. But so you're saying like your father used to sell bread with him over there, and he used to have all the Italian specialties from the provolone to the sopressata, and people used to go to him. Now, like, would your mother go to him, and like, would she bring home stuff for you and the family?
My mother cooked every day of her life. My father did the food shopping.
Okay.
When he went to all these Italian stores. So that's why he was bringing the stuff.
That was kind of his thing because he got to shake hands. He got to say hello to Vito. He got to say hello to this guy.
And then he brought home whatever he brought home. Then my mother cooked it.
And then what kind of things would your mother cook generally?
Well, like that cookbook I was showing you. That whole page.
Palazzi.
That one whole page.
Well, nobody can see the cookbook, Al. You gotta
I'm saying,
tell
if you
people.
pulled out that page, well, off the top of my head, I can't remember all these recipes. You said the veal and the peppers. My mother had a veal scallopini recipe that I never had veal scallopini like that again in my life. It was just, you could eat the whole big tray like that.
Tell everybody what a veal scallopini is. There's a lot of Americans that listen to this, I think.
Well, I'm not really sure how my mother, she made it, but it had the marinara sauce in it. Mm-hmm. It had some mozzarella in it. I know she put salt and black pepper in it, but the way it wasn't breaded veal. I don't think it was breaded.
Yeah,
but the way she cooked it
or something.
No, she cooked it in this like a glass pan.
Oh, okay.
And she baked it in the oven, and that's how she made it. But I don't know like exactly how she made it. She showed me a couple of her recipes, like her ravioli recipe. I wrote that down in the book. I know just how she made it.
What was that like? What did it have inside?
All these old ladies.
Did it have mushrooms in it? Did it have lobster?
all these women, when I grew up, they all had like the same recipe, and they all had like the perfect recipe handed to them.
Right.
By the ladies that came before them. These recipes were the perfected recipes. So my mother would make raviolis on the holidays, like Easter she'd make, or maybe Christmas she'd make the ravioli. My mother had 8 kids, so she had to go make up 150 just the raviolis. She'd make the ravioli dough. I don't remember the recipe. You know, it was.
Oh, you don't have to tell anybody the recipe. Just tell me what your experience was.
Okay, I used to go help her, and you take the rolling pin. You had to roll it real thin, and then she would use like the pizza cutter to cut them, and then she'd fold them over and she'd punch them down with just a regular fork, and she didn't make them too big. And then she keep them in the wooden dough boxes, like kept the pizza dough in.
Okay.
And then when it was time to get them, you'd go put them in a pizza box and bring them in the kitchen, and she'd make them right there. They were strictly fresh.
And then what'd she put in there? Lobster?
No, she only made them with ricotta cheese.
Well, ricotta cheese
Put
and then
egg in. She
marinara?
probably put egg in there, parsley in there.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
She
a little
mixed the whole
salt and
thing.
pepper in there. She'd mix that up. But then as far as with the meat, she put the meat in the gravy. You'd have meat, but her brush roll, oh my God. She used to take black thread. That was the trick. She used to sit there real careful, put a piece of black thread like she was going to sew. And she'd sew the veal up, cutlet up with the black thread. And then she put that in the pot. I don't remember her frying it first, but it would cook in there everything back then was 3-4 hours of making the gravy. It simmered the whole time and stirring it. When it came out, it was so tender, you could break it with a fork. And you had to use flank steak. That was the steak, as it was a little bit tougher.
Not veal, flank steak for the brajol.
Brajol was flank steak.
Brajol was flank steak, and then what was inside? Like garlic, parsley,
Roll it
breadcrumb.
up in there, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And then, like, what, people have, like, chickens back then? Where'd you get your eggs from? Or you just went to the store?
Well, depends on what you were doing. There was a famous egg guy called Papetti. He became worth like $200 million. We had a couple of them come out of Elizabeth. It was Papetti's high-grade eggs. Then he sold that for $200 million. But he started off in the little Italian section. That's where you went for the holidays to get your Thanksgiving turkey. But it was a regular poultry shop. I'm sure we got eggs from there a lot of times. But you could pick up eggs like in all those little stores.
But I know, like...
That's if you wanted to. But there was still places around in the Italian section where they were starting out with a poultry farm, like where you got a couple garages over here. That's how they started out.
Just like in a couple garages having the chickens. And did like families have the chickens too?
Yeah.
Like, because I know a couple of Italian families that still have chickens.
When I was a kid, we used to go and deliver bread. So everything was, you used to have to go around the back. Seemed like everything was on the second or third floor. You had to bring house deliveries. Well, this one, you used to go back there. As soon as you opened the gate, the chicken would attack you because you were only a little kid. And the chicken would start pulling at your shoelaces.
They were brooding. That's what they call it when they're mad.
When they're doing that?
Yeah, I mean, what was it? Was it like a female chicken or a male chicken?
I don't know.
They just mess with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, if they were big enough to mess with a kid.
Yeah. No, I've been around a lot of chickens recently.
The last
no
farm
joke.
in Elizabeth was right on the corner from my pizzeria. It was there in the 50s, was a cow farm. Then we did have...
It was a farm.
Yeah, it was a little farm in Elizabeth.
In Elizabeth.
Yeah, up into the 50s.
You guys out there listening, you got to understand something. Like, Elizabeth's like a little mini city. Like, it's not like in the middle of nowhere or anything. It's in North Jersey.
You know what Elizabeth is? It looked like they came into Manhattan and took one street and put it on the other side of the Hudson River. That's exactly what it is.
That's actually a really good description to what Elizabeth does.
Yeah, it took one street. They just picked one out of Manhattan and put it over there.
So did you guys go to like Newark back in the day? I know that was like a big. That's next door, and that was a big Italian community.
That was the big thing. Well, then don't forget that was up until '67 when all those things happened.
When the riots,
But I remember my older sister taking a bus in there. You were big if you could take the bus into Newark to go shopping on the weekend. So that's what you did.
Yeah, you went to go shopping and go to the.
But this Broad Street in Elizabeth had all your most expensive stores. You could go up there and buy, real expensive fur coats and everything.
Really?
Yeah, now it's all like dollar stores and that. Every store up on that Broad Street in Elizabeth's owned by New Yorkers. Nobody from Elizabeth even owns them. New York bought all that up.
So back in so going back to like in Elizabeth back in the day, like I mean, I just want to kind of like I'm really interested to like understand like kind of like the little nuances of what was going on back then. Like how was it different than today? Like
Let me explain something. My father, the reason I'm there is because they made it sound like paradise on earth. You know what I mean? The Italian part of town was like, oh, it was heaven. When he came out of his father's bakery on 4th Avenue and High Street, you had about a mile almost of the whole Italian section. Every single corner, and maybe in between, was some kind of club or a dance club or a bar. They didn't even have TV. They didn't have air conditioning. They didn't even have fans. They all had to go outside and find things to do out there. And they had all that. And then he had to go to World War II. He left, like, right in the beginning of 1942, he left. So he was there for up to all of 41, my father. Then in 42, he was gone. 43, he was gone. 44, he was gone. He was gone about over 3 years.
Where did he go? Did he go to Italy or Germany?
No, he served.
Or Japan?
Yeah, he had pretty tough service. He was on the North Atlantic on the destroyer escort submarine hunter. Here's what happened. Just to see put this in your mind. You're out looking for submarines to sink. They're out looking for you to sink you. Cat and mouse.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun.
It's whoever if they got the jump on you, like his sister ship got sunk. So they picked up all the survivors and they took them to Casablanca, and I somehow managed to get all the pictures at one time. They had a photographer with them. They had all these 8x10 pictures, like 100 of them, of carrying all the guys on them old-fashioned like cots, like the little things that they carried the guys on. It was like all those pictures. He had 2 Bronze Stars, so that means they must have sunk 2 subs. He helped to sink 2 subs. That's how you get the Bronze Star. You have to be in a battle.
Oh. All right.
Yeah, and then the biggest thing he did was, I don't know how much you know about history, but President Roosevelt had to go to this place called Yalta to meet Stalin and Winston Churchill.
Oh, yeah, I've seen the video from that meeting,
So when he left from the United States to go all the way to Yalta, my father was with the convoy that escorted FDR over to Europe.
Okay. Wait, where'd they meet?
Yalta. I think it's up in the Black Sea, actually.
In the Black Sea somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen videos of that. There's a, like a famous thing where Winston Churchill was,
documentaries, yeah.
Well, in that meeting, though, Winston Churchill was very sour about Stalin, and Stalin was like, apparently, you could see the video of it, and Roosevelt was cracking jokes and making Stalin laugh, and they kind of credit Roosevelt with like making that whole thing happen. But so he was on the submarine pretty much the whole time.
No, he was on a destroyer escort.
Destroyer escort.
Yeah.
Okay, and so he was in the Navy.
Yeah. But it was called North Atlantic.
Okay.
That's the Battle of the North Atlantic. The Battle of the North Atlantic was 2 halves. The first half and the second half. He was in the second half.
And that was fighting the Germans, obviously, if it was in the North Atlantic.
And then he remembers his mother telling him that she didn't want him to go into war because he was going to have to fight the Italians. A lot of people don't realize that. It was Italy and Germany together, wasn't against the United States.
Yeah, with Mussolini, Italy, Germany, Japan.
So I got one cousin from here that died in France. They buried him over there.
He was fighting on the American side or the Italian?
On our side.
Okay.
He got killed with a landmine after D-Day. And I got another cousin that he died on the Eastern Front for fighting for Italy against Russia. And they never found his body.
Do you remember, were you around when the war was over?
Well, I was born in 57.
Okay.
War was all over in 45.
Right. So a lot of years later.
Right. So it was 20 years later, or 15, 20 years later, but everybody was talking about like it was just last week.
No,
100%. They still talk about 20 years ago. The older you get, 20 years ago doesn't seem that long ago.
So then you lived through Vietnam.
Yeah, Vietnam was the big war.
Right.
But now I can't believe all those guys are like in their 70s now.
Oh, yeah.
Vietnam
At least.
guys.
I mean, some are older.
Yeah, well, a lot of them above 70 is probably the average age for them. You know, we're older.
I know guys that are a lot older than that were in Vietnam.
Listen,
I mean,
without a doubt. Without a doubt. Started in 64.
Yeah.
But I was talking about, for me personally, all the guys that I know. They
oh,
were
yeah,
like
yeah,
10
yeah.
years
Because,
older than
yeah,
me.
exactly. Yeah,
I was supposed to go, just to show you how it ended. I was going to go, and the year that I turned 18, they had this thing like a lottery. They would pull this ball like a lottery, and when your birthday came up, that you were going to get drafted. Well, however they did it, they stopped drafting the guys, but they still had the lottery in case the war started back up again, because the war might have started back up again. We didn't know. So I came out number 3, so I'd have been gone.
You would have been gone if it kept on going.
Yeah, well, when I was 18, they picked number 3, but I went in the Air Force anyway.
Oh, you were in the Air Force?
Yeah, from 75 to 79.
What was that like? What'd you do?
Let me tell you, that was the best 4 years of my life.
Yeah?
Listen, when you take a test, and I did good on the test, so they gave me office job, like administrative job. They put me in the office in San Antonio, Texas, on this Air Force base called Randolph Air Force Base. Is the show place of the Air Force. Had 7 Olympic-sized pools, 111 full bird colonels. It was instructor pilot base, whatever the wing was, 12th Air Force Training Wing. Say you were going to be an instructor pilot, not a regular pilot.
Right.
An instructor pilot.
A teacher, the kids coming up.
They would send you to Iraq, Germany to teach the kids over there.
Oh, okay,
But-
to teach the other, like the allied countries.
Yeah, but yeah, when just to show you how funny it was, Iran was our best friend because I used to hang out with the officers from Iran, like where we were friendly.
Right, when the Shah was in power,
They were
back
like our
then.
best buds.
Yeah.
I remember when all that happened.
Well, the CIA installed the Shah, I think, in like the 1950s.
You know, I follow all of that in
Yeah.
history, but you got to realize one thing that people don't understand. United States is a country that has a two-party system. When you go to a country like Iran or a lot of even China, it's a one-party system.
Right.
So if you want to say if this country had a one-party system, you got rid of all the Republicans. The only way you could get another power ruler in there is what? There's only one way. War.
War.
That's the only way.
Yeah.
So luckily in our country, they were wise enough to make the two-party system, and everybody learned to live with it.
Right.
But in these other countries, they never developed that one-party rule. So that's why
Yeah,
I'm
they're
not
authoritarian countries.
Right. Well, they have a dictator or one party.
Sure.
So that's
Yeah.
why Iran is like that. I don't know if Iraq is like that, but a lot of countries are that way.
Well, Iran is a funny. Iran actually had a developed a democracy. I forget. Can you look that up? What was the guy's name from the democracy? But then he wasn't so friendly with us, and we needed oil. So it's not even like this isn't what you would call it, like
Disputable.
conspiracy theory. Yeah, it's all like declassified like CIA things because they were like, okay, we need a guy who's going to do what we say.
I don't have any problem with that. I mean, to me, I can see that if you have a country and you have an opposition party and they're friendly to us, I'll put it down on layman's terms. Say you just pick a country in Africa. And you live there, and I'm your friend. I want to visit you. You want to sell me whatever they got in Africa, right?
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, these guys that I don't know who they are, you don't know who they are, they take over the government. And, you can't send out these, whatever it is, mahogany wood no more.
Right.
Al, you
Cork
can't, whatever,
in Africa,
you can't buy
cork.
it no more.
Yeah, it
so
could
then
be.
the next thing you're going to do is what? Hey, let's find some guys that's friendly to Al and Nino and put them in charge.
I
mean,
yeah.
put it on basic terms like that.
I get it. No, I understand. I understand why they did it, but it's also, I mean, I don't see it as like a positive thing, like taking out an actual like working democracy and installing.
I don't know all the details of the,
they took out a working democracy and a democratically elected guy where you could have had multiple parties and installed an authoritarian, which was the Shah.
That Shah that goes back hundreds of years. That with that show, he wasn't just nobody. You know what I mean?
Oh no,
Yeah.
he wasn't nobody. No, he was from like some royal family and this
that's
and
what I'm
that.
saying. He
But
was
like
like
as
the
an
royal
American, like I don't want no fucking royalty momos. Like I'm like, no, that's not what we're about.
When World War II was in there, I was very surprised that I don't know how Britain had the pole, but that's how we were supplying Russia. We would bring all the material to Iran, and they would ship it by truck into Russia.
Right.
That's how Russia got
Because we
supplied.
had to help them out.
Right.
Yeah.
So whoever they had to buy off or pay off in Iran and Iraq, we got it done.
Well, yeah. Back then, what was the guy's name?
Oh, the former prime minister was Mohammed Masada.
That was the guy before the show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back onto we
But
dived
wasn't
into
Iran part of the British Empire at that time, and that's how it was?
in World War II.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they were part of the British Empire. But yeah, because all the Middle East got chopped up after World War One.
Yeah.
So France, like
They're living as a result of
Yeah.
it. And
But-
you know, I'll tell you something that's fascinating. That Woodrow Wilson, he had some kind of plan after World War One about every country is going to have a vote on like how their government's going to be.
League of Nations. Was that what?
Well, before the League of Nations,
Okay.
he had this like 12-point plan.
Okay. Yeah.
And some
yeah.
of these countries are still living that out. Like, I mean, I see the little bits and pieces of it here and there, but they're trying to have plebiscites or whatever of little elections, and then they'll decide who's going to be in charge of their country. So, there's people trying to fulfill that still.
Yeah.
And that's over 100 years ago.
Yeah, there's definitely in geopolitical politics, it gets a little fucking crazy out there. There's
It's got a lot to do with might makes right. If you could be the nicest guy in the world, but if you're not going to stand up for yourself, people are going to walk all over you.
no, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, yeah, these are like really complicated topics, but
No, it is. You gotta have a lot of
There's so
friends,
much
you
to
know.
unpack with each one of these countries because, like, a lot of the bigger countries, especially, like, I mean, if you look at the Middle East, for instance, like after World War One, we kind of like divided everything up. That was the Ottoman Empire. It was World War One. Was the whole entire Middle East was one empire.
The world's like
exists.
a playground in a bad high school. Check out those breads I gave you.
No, it's
Rip that bag
no,
off.
100%. So,
And I
yeah. So Al brought this over. This is one of my favorite things in the entire world. So one of these is sausage bread.
Yeah.
This is a sausage bread.
Yeah.
So take a look at that. We're gonna heat this up later. This is our dinner, and then I'm taking a bite right now. Actually, tell them what's in the sausage bread. Tell them.
Well, that's sweet Italian sausage from Sacco's Butcher Shop. He's my favorite butcher. I've been dealing with him for forever, and it's always good. That's my highest recommendation. It's always good. And the mozzarella cheese, and then I sprinkled the sesame seeds on top. But I'm a very particular about curating the ingredients, like the sesame seeds. You see how nice and crispy they are all over your fingers.
Right. Are you Sicilian at all?
No, we're Napolitan.
No, you guys are Napolitan.
But this is when you're in Elizabeth. Became, I would say, of all the Italians, like half of them were Sicilian. But you don't know growing up unless they tell you. You don't know if they're
sure.
Sicilian or Napolitan. You just know they're Italian. They you can't tell by looking at them. But I like them. Mostly Napolitan people and Sicilian people. Those were the two main ethnic groups in Elizabeth. And when I was taught to bake in the brick oven, and you could ask Clem Caserta this. He knew this. His family has.
Who's Clem Caserta?
He's been in every Robert De Niro movie.
Okay.
He was.
He's like an actor.
He's an actor.
Okay.
Robert. See, these guys are older. He's older than De Niro even, but he's been in every. When you said Broome Street, that's how I knew Clem Caserta. He was from Broome Street, and they tell the story that De Niro really wasn't one of them tough guys. He grew up on a couple blocks away, where they're a little more gentrified already, and he was trying to fit in with these like the real hoods.
De Niro was when he was a kid.
Yeah, he wasn't really one of them.
Right, sure.
Yeah, but he, idolized.
I didn't
those
even
guys.
know that he wanted to be a tough guy back in the day. I never realized that.
Well, he plays tough guys in all the movies.
plays tough guys in all the movies, but you know, how many actual tough guys like play tough guys in the movies? You know what I mean? Like,
Well, not too many.
yeah, I mean they're actors.
Yeah.
I mean, there's different guys that I mean, I don't know if I'd want to mess with them. They seem like they know how to fight, but I don't imagine, you know, like take like Tom Hardy for instance. Tom Hardy plays a really, really good tough guy in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
But you look at Tom Hardy when he's 20 years old, and I mean, I'm not sure I'd want to mess with Tom Hardy. He looks like a strong guy who works out and probably knows how to fight because he's been around a lot of good trainers. But at the same time, when the guy was a kid, he wasn't aspiring to be some tough guy, you know, and he was aspiring to be an actor. I would have assumed it was the same with De Niro, but you're saying now he was on the streets being a knucklehead?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that the guys from Broome Street, however he became friends with them, they looked at him like you would look at like the poor little rich kid.
Ah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like there was kids
yeah.
on my block that they were the poor little rich kid. They had all the toys. They couldn't come out of the house. They had better mommies and daddies.
Sure.
And we were like little street urchin kids. When we were kids, I'm telling you, we didn't even have shoes. My father had 8 kids. We didn't even all have shoes at the same time.
Yeah, we definitely, my little crew, we definitely weren't allowed around the rich kids' houses. They wouldn't, their
But
parents
they were
wouldn't let
around
us
the little
around.
rich kids. You know, the parents
Yeah.
took them here and there.
Oh, the rich kids, they
De
come
Niro
to
came from some kind of money. You know?
Right.
Where these other kids were just on the street.
Yeah.
But anyway, the reason I'm bringing up Clem is he was one of the few guys that knew that my type of cooking was called Neapolitan. And then he has a video. He gave me a copy of the video. His family has a restaurant in Naples, and he went to some restaurant over here in Naples, and you should see this guy cook. I mean, he was cooking all the real Italian things. His big thing is the puttanesca sauce. That's what everybody wanted, the puttanesca sauce. That was the big thing for 30 years.
Right.
Now you don't hear about it, but he was showing you how to make that. But
There's actually this video I gotta send you. Have you ever seen the look up puttanesca 5-minute or struggle videos or something like that? Maybe we can pull it up. But it's this kid. Now he's got a show called 5-minute struggle meals or something, and it's like he makes dishes for I don't know what it is. It's like under $3, under $5 or something like that.
Yeah.
For home cooks, but he had a short-lived show. The guy's a really, good TV type of guy, but he's on the internet. And he did the whole history of the puttanesca, because, puttana, like, do you know a story, like a puttanesca story at all?
That's what it is, the story of the whores. That's what
Right.
That's
So-
what it means.
Yeah, he told some story about it was like the history of there it is, Frankies World. Yeah, pull it's 12 minutes long, but we'll watch it at some point. But yeah, this is the guy Frankie, and then he does
Tells you the history, a little backstory.
Spaghetti alla puttanesca.
Oh, Frankie, what is
yeah. He does like
It's
the whole
quite
like
pungent.
there's like a few histories. Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna get in trouble for playing this.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Everybody can look it up. Taboo tale of
I don't want
puttanesca.
the guy sending me a bill.
Well, he's gonna send me the bill if he sends anybody the bill. You don't gotta worry about it. I'll send Tello.
Send Nino the bill.
Yeah, Nino will get the bill for sure. I'll get the letter in the mail, the cease and desist, and all that shit. No, but basically he talks about it was there was a a woman, and she used to have guys over.
Clem Caserta for 10 seconds.
Clem Caserta?
Caserta. That's Caserta, Italy.
Oh, so you're saying that Clem, he was one of the Broome Street guys, but then he would act in the movies with De Niro,
because
because
every De Niro movie.
Right.
He had my favorite scene in all the movies. He was when they were beating up the bikers in the
Bronx Tale.
Yeah. He was the guy beating the shit out of the bikers the most.
Oh, he was was he the big guy?
Yeah.
The real big guy?
Yeah.
He's still alive?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
He's still alive?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How'd you spell
What, he
that
come-
name again? The last name?
Caserta. Now, the reason this sticks in my mind is Italians always try to put 2 and 2 together. This is why this goes back to the Roman Empire.
Okay.
Why was the Roman Empire so great? they had a sickness for organization. They were better organized than anybody. So
That is very
it's
true.
in your DNA now from 2,000 years. You have to have everything organized. If you talk about,
Oh yeah.
if you talk about Naples, now I got to talk about Caserta. Now I got to talk about Clem Caserta, and I got to put all these things, organize them together into this group. Otherwise, my head don't stop. Like into threes. I got that picture of him over there.
What, this one right here? Or this one?
No, the one to the left. The one I got that picture. Yeah, that one's all over the internet all the time.
Yeah,
but the
this
famous one where they're beating up Joe Pesci's not here. They got a picture where they show him, and the one where they're giving Joe Pesci the pineapple. It's a mime going all over Facebook now.
Yeah, a meme.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what? He was in Casino, beating him up?
All of them.
Yeah, he's in all the
Here's
movies.
his son. His son just got a cooking show. If you want to get him over here, he'd be good for you.
Oh yeah.
And he's from around. Nice
Yeah,
young
if
guy.
you reach out to him, we'd love to talk to him.
He's been on a couple TV shows.
Oh, nice.
Clemenza.
Was it Chewing the Fat with Big and Beefy? That's Chewing the Fat. That's the name of my new favorite book. I want to get her on
Chewing
too.
the Fat with Big and Beefy with guest Clem. Yeah, but I don't know. He's got a new show out. I don't know if that's it.
Oh, okay. It says the Wacko Network. The Wacko Network?
That's what it says.
That's what it says.
The Wacko. Images maybe, I don't see a date on there. Caserta 1001. I don't know. That means 2001. That might be from 20 years ago. Or
Is he? You think the kid's that old? He looks.
No, I'd say he's about 40.
Yeah, he looks about 40 right
Well,
there.
that picture's
Maybe
that,
it's
that picture's
10:01.
that picture's like 10 years ago. That's why I'm saying. You don't.
Oh,
look like
that picture. You think it's? Yeah.
I think that picture's from 10 years ago.
So this guy, the old man. What are you saying? He like comes into your club and he's from Broome Street.
He moved down to Florida now, but he used to be in there all the time.
He used to come to Santillos all the time.
He was a regular.
And where did he live? He lived somewhere in Jersey.
He was living in Staten Island. He had a moving company on the side, but he did the acting gigs. He tried to make his own movie a couple times, but he wasn't that successful. He made his own movie, and then he tried to make a couple more movies on his own, but he didn't have that much success. But now he's old. Now he's in his 80s.
Right.
But he doesn't really. So if you see him online, somebody's doing all that for him. He's not capable of doing that.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't look like a guy who's interested in posting on Facebook or anything like that.
No, he ain't.
He's like, hey, Clem, I'm gonna take a picture. I'm gonna put it on the wire.
Tell my secretary.
Tell my secretary to do it. So, You were saying so he was from Broome Street and became friends with De Niro when he was a kid, and then yeah.
Okay, but the reason we brought up Clem is he gives me the bona fides
to tell you
somebody
that was
other
legit.
than that what I'm doing. He recognized it as Neapolitan cooking, and his family. He even showed me they have a restaurant in Naples, and basically it means everything is going to be on the very well done side. That's how they like it. Not burnt all up, but they consider that well done. That's got to do with
well done as far as bread goes, or as far as what?
bread, the
meat.
bread and the pizza for sure.
Okay.
I don't know about all that. Like, see, if you wanted something softer, then now you want to get into a ravioli or a piece of cake, but they want their bread hard. Remember that one picture I sent you? I told you see if you could find anything about the place.
Yeah.
Remember that last guy I showed you?
Yeah.
All the work the guy went through. See, there was two kinds of bakers. There's crisp guys that want everything crispy, and there's people that don't want it crispy. We were the crispy bakers.
Right.
We were doing all things to make things crispy.
I believe you 100%. I just know for a fact there's a lot of fucking guys from Caserta and from Campania who are gonna argue about this.
Well, can I tell you something? I have relatives in Caserta.
Oh, you're talking about Fazio's, right?
What?
The Fazio video. Is that the video you were talking about?
Fazio?
Yeah, you sent me some video called Fazio.
No.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, that's a bakery in somewhere out in Missouri.
Okay. Yeah.
That.
Oh, yeah.
The reason I'm telling you Fazio is a lot of us have that same story. I'm going to show you the picture right now. Like, this is a common story with these Italians, with the bakeries. There used to be a bakery shop on every block when my father was a kid.
Over here, yeah.
In Jersey, was one on every block.
Well, I think what a lot of people don't realize on both sides of the fence, and on both sides of the pond, I should say, is that, Italy, for 95% of the population up until, really the 50s or 60s, I mean, you're talking about a country that's 1,500 years under hardcore feudal authoritarian rule.
Feudal, yeah.
And then that changes to Mussolini and a fascist dictatorship. Yeah. And then you go through World War II, and then that's when the economic miracle happens. And it's, see what
it says there? Look, that was my grandfather's bell head. Can you hold it up?
Okay, crispy.
Yep.
Yeah. I can
my
hold
father
this up.
didn't have the heart to change it, and I didn't either. Can you read it? Hold it over a second.
Oh, wait, I got that.
Switch.
Can you read it? See it? That's from 1950.
Let's go.
Yeah, I know, but I got that.
Oh, you have it. You can pull it up.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, that's my father. Okay.
Yeah.
I pick up that other one where that baker from Italy is. I'm trying to track down south of Rome. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so crispy Italian bread. Well, no, I don't think
Italian tomato pies.
Yeah,
that's what they called them.
So this receipt's from what year? What do you say?
Well, this is from 1950. The only thing I didn't matter, it was even the same printer. That's why he's even got the same type. You had this old guy. He's got the same type from might be going out of business now, but he had all that type like from Benjamin Franklin days when you went. He had all the little type things like this. He was still doing all that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would question, even out in Italy, these guys, about crispy bread. They would question if you're saying like crispy pizza because, according to, now I'm not saying this right.
Yeah,
I'm just saying what people are going to say. They're going to say that, there's, a Neapolitan tradition that dates back to, the 1920s.
I watched the video. He folds it into a wallet.
Oh, the portfolio pizza, sure.
So listen, I get what they're doing.
Right.
I don't have no issue. If that's what they like, I don't have no issue with that.
Right.
But and I made a million pizzas like that, soft like that. But that's not the one that I prize the most.
No. I agree with you. I think we perfected pizza in New York. Yeah. All I'm saying is that we I'd love to explore this, and I'd love to I got friends that could say actually one of the guys who's probably going to be the first Michelin star pizza guy. Yeah. I think Francesco Martucci is actually out of Caserta.
Well, I have relatives in Caserta, and when I went to go visit them, they made sure that I knew that the buffalo mozzarella cheese came from Caserta, Italy. And we had a dinner, and they must have 5 pounds of it there.
Right. And but in America, you didn't really get that too much. In the day.
They even had that back in the early '80s. They had buffalo mozzarella and wood-fired ovens. They had it, and maybe it's bigger now because listen. Just New Jersey's 8 million people. I mean, try to comprehend that. New York City's like another 8 or 10 million people.
Yeah.
I mean, you got 2,000 people. There's plenty of room for all these guys to have their specialty thing, but running a business and making a pizza is two different things. When you have to get into making money off it, let's be honest here. If you go to a fancy restaurant, what's the guy making more money off? Selling you sausage and peppers and spaghetti, or selling you a pizza for 2 people? Making more money off the sausage and pepper dinner.
Right.
How much is he gonna get for that pizza?
Yeah, I mean,
gonna get $18, and then you and your girlfriend's gonna split it, and you're there at the table for 45 minutes. You're lucky if the whole bill comes to $35. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're talking about turning the tables.
No, 100%. I mean, I think what I kind of attribute a lot of this stuff to is that
see if you can find that other picture of the guy with the big long.
Oh yeah, I got that.
Bread.
Oh, he's got it. Yeah,
I want to see that.
Yeah. I've always kind of attributed I don't know what it was. I wasn't around in the 1950s in Napoli.
Yeah.
I wasn't around in the 1920s. I don't know what the fuck was going on, but I do know that these guys They came over to America, and you had, these bread baking ovens, and in these bread baking ovens that are 40 feet deep that were traditionally used for bread, that's where they started making the pizza. And
look at this oven. Blow that up.
Yeah.
You could blow it up.
I mean, it's on the full screen. They can see
you can't blow it up. You can.
You can blow it up.
You blow it up.
Yeah, I mean.
Because the thing with the digital nowadays, you could blow it up, slide it over this way. You could see how he's making his bread. Slide it over this way. See what that bread looks like up in the corner there?
Yeah.
You see all the work he did to make it crispy like that?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. See all the work he made to do that crispy like that?
That looks like that, how do you call it? What Tony Gimignani's making at his new bakery. I mean, it looks like a much longer version. Have you seen that? What Tony's
he's trying
doing?
to make some kind of focaccia over there? That's like a focaccia. That's exactly what that is.
It's like...
There's different ways of making focaccias, but basically it means that.
Yeah, he has. I'm gonna look it up right now to see what he calls it. It starts with a P.
But look at his face. He don't look like he's Sicilian. You know what I mean?
Right. No, yeah, I hear what you're saying. 100%. No, he called it. It was like P. Oh, here it is, right here. It's opening in 3 minutes. It doesn't say the name, but it's like that. I've been
following him. Yeah. Okay, I haven't seen that thing. That looks like a pretzel pizza. When the people would make it like a pretzel.
Well, it's like a really crispy, like, here, let me find a better picture for you.
Well, I can see what it is, but I mean, that looks like he's crossed.
See, look, it's like the flats.
Yeah.
They're very flat and thin.
It's got big holes in there?
Well, he's just like cutting holes, but you can see, go back to that other picture that you had.
I don't know where we found that from.
See the holes in here?
Yeah.
It's got
those aren't really holes. Those are like dimples, kind of. But they probably were holes at one time.
Well, that's
closed up.
I mean, that's definitely not.
Looks like he did it with his fingers.
Yeah, but these are slashes in here. These aren't.
You think those are slashes?
No, those are definitely slashes. You can see, and you can see how thin it is. Like it's definitely you. He probably either took a knife or a pizza cutter or something to the whole thing. Yeah. But it was a well fermented thing, so it would have, while it was baking, it wouldn't have spread out. It would have went back together.
There was more to that article that told you everything how he did it.
Oh,
I don't remember now. That's a few step process there.
Oh yeah. Of course.
That was other ones. Was my dad. See, my father and
that's your father.
He's about 60 there, but see how carefully he's. See, he like an eagle eye, paying attention.
Yeah.
He's concentrating. He's being serious there.
Right. Go back to the previous one.
Yeah, he's about 40.
This is your father here. Yeah.
That's
what year you think
I'd say that's about 63 or 64.
And this is in.
You see the arms on him? How I say he was in the Navy. He had the Popeye arm.
Yeah.
That's when they had to pull all the ropes all the time. Look,
right.
They're pulling all the ropes. You get big forearms from twisting all the ropes.
I see your muscles moving now.
They do all this with the ropes all the time. Right. And they have to take the ropes and roll them up and stuff. They still had a lot of ropes back then.
So now, what year you think this was?
He's got a furnace right behind there. He was putting steam in the oven.
Yeah, talk on the mic. Okay.
My father was putting steam in the oven. Then in 1970, he went back to Italy with Bonamata Mike DeCosmo. Mike DeCosmo was a prize fighter back in the 50s. He won a $10,000 purse down in New Orleans. So he was famous, a prize fighter. And Mike DeCosmo owned, his parents were making cheese over in the Italian market. So when he got a little older, he took over the cheese business. So he was one of our everyday customers. So just to tell you about how history was and how we talk about Americans and Italians, Mike DeCosmo went with my father. They went back to, I'm going to tell you, Vallata. Now, Vallata is maybe only 20, 30 kilometers from where the Santillos are from. They're called Valades. And the Valades said, tell us where we're from. It was called, they call us Moon Valades, the mountain Valades. They think we're Valades too.
Okay.
That's like the little area of Caserta. Caserta would be in that area.
Right.
So when he went back to Vallata, he found a bakery just like that. This is in 1970. And they weren't using steam. They just were making the bread without steam.
Okay.
So that was a big thing. Then they didn't like the French. French was like their enemies. The Italians didn't like the French.
Right.
Got to get that straight. That's why there's a border between them. They still fight over the land over there. If you get a chance, they'll go to war over that little piece of land that Mussolini took in World War II. They had to give it back.
Sure.
So once he found out that he could make the bread without the steam, he was real happy, and he didn't use the steam no more.
Oh, okay. So
But this is the bread with the steam. See, it does come a little more nicer looking with the steam. It keeps the bread from, like that loaf of bread I gave you. Sometimes it'll split open. The steam helps all that.
yeah. It'll give it like a glossy effect. It'll
And keep
create
it
like
from
the ears more.
Keep it from splitting funny.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
Like
that
stops
has-
the Maillard effect.
Has good effect.
So you're saying like that furnace was just full of water that would be heated.
Yeah, he had a furnace back here, and right over there was some kind of valve. I used to have to put the water in. You'd have to open it up, let the steam in, and then you have to close it again. Like I was over there working when I was 5 years old. I was already working.
So at this point, he's not making pizza yet. He's just like doing
he was
like tons of
making
bread.
pizza
Oh, he's
already.
making pizza too. So they're doing both.
Yeah, he was already making pizza. Trying to think. Say he started there in '57. I mean, so maybe like I'm sure by '59 he was making pizza already.
Right.
But he didn't make pizza till like try to do it like 5 at night to 11 or 12 at night because his first love was the bread.
Got it.
But he wanted to do something with the bread. Like I told you, he felt like if he could make better bread, he could charge more. And then the final thing he said to me when he was giving up was, because he tried over there for all them years, he says, Al, I don't know what you're going to do. He says, because I could never charge enough and I could never make enough to make the kind of money that he wants to make over there.
Sure.
With that oven. Even though that oven is big like that, it's not designed for mass producing like that. I worked in other bakeries. When I told you I worked for the Gambinos had a bakery shop up in Bloomfield, New Jersey. And I worked over there because I wanted to learn the trade. I wasn't lazy. I worked here all during the day, and I'd worked in the construction union, and at night I worked for the Gambinos up in Bloomfield for like 3.5 years.
Who's the Gambinos? What do you mean?
It was Charlie Gambino.
Uh-huh.
And he was related to the famous Gambinos that everybody knows.
Like the Mafia Gambinos.
Yeah, but he was legit.
Right.
The guy worked his ass off. That's the thing.
What was the bakery? You're talking about Bloomfield Avenue in Newark?
No. Listen. Bloomfield Avenue in Newark turns into Bloomfield Avenue in Bloomfield.
Yeah.
And he had a brother, Sal Gambino. They brought a beautiful story about him in the ledger. I'll show you sometime. Right when he burned all the turkeys. So I worked with these guys to soak up my culture. You know what I'm trying to say? Because here's how the Italians get you. I got to tell you a story. They wanted me to take the business, right? And they come and they say, we can never give you what the money the Americans could give you. Because you go get a job like for the trade. Well, these guys, I could tell you with the carpenters or the steam fitters, and you'll make more money than you're ever going to make with that little pizzeria, because those guys are paid well, unless a lot of them went into that. And then he said, but you could bring your family over here. You could have your wife here, your kids here, and you could have your family all together. You could have that, but you could have your family with you, and you could work all the hours you want. And my father said, when I was working 100 hours a week, he goes, I was making a lot of money, but don't count your footsteps, because it ain't going to come out to a lot per hour, but you can get all the hours you want.
Right.
So that's how it got resolved. And they said, they like you to, everybody, the Italian community would love you to stay here. They'll support you. Looks good for another 20 years. This was like the early 80s. Why don't you take this? Because my father's house was already shot, because he was like 58. He couldn't do it no more. He's same problem I'm getting. Shoulders shot, lung shot, back shot, everything was shot, So I took over the business.
So what was this? You went and worked for this like Gambino bakery, and that's what it was called?
It was called Columbus Bakery.
Columbus Bakery.
That was so sad. I went by there about a year ago. It's all closed up. The family must be fighting over it. You know what I mean? I don't know if Charlie died. I heard Charlie was alive still down in Florida.
Okay.
And then he had a son, Jackie. He went to work for this other brick oven place. I think it was in Belleville. It was called right across from like a subway stop in Belleville. It was an Italian bakery. I tried calling them. They're out of business. I try to keep track of all these places. I know I got another customer. That's what he does. He keeps tracks of all these brick ovens and what's left and who's there.
Sure.
It's like a thing to keep track. And we don't have no kind of organization for us. Nobody ever made an organization. And then there was another guy. He was real famous. He was not Gambino's. Oh, he was in Newark, and he used to make the bread for Frank Sinatra. That's how I grew up. My father was trying to get Frank Sinatra the bread.
To get in that.
To sell it to Frank. Yeah.
Because that would blow it up.
My father was like the #1 Frank Sinatra fan. His my father's nickname was Frank Sinatra Jr. My father would go out after work.
Yeah, he looks...
He would go out to nightclubs. He would sing. Then
really?
He had a friend that played the horn, and they used to like let him sit in with the big shots. That was their thrill. Like say like a big band would let him sing on the side and let his friend play the horn. They would sit in with him.
Right.
And that's what they did for fun.
So they do it for like free, and then like it was like their payment was like, oh, you get to hang out with the guys and you get to drink.
Get hang out with the real guys.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's the kind of life he had.
So he was like a really good singer.
Yeah, he was, and he was a professional dancer too. After he left working for me,
Get out of here.
he got a job like dancing on the cruise ship, like one of those. Like you saw the movie.
Yeah. The old movies, the old movies from the '80s where they used to have the
That's what he was doing.
So tell me, you know what? We're gonna take a little break for 1 second, and then we're gonna come right back.
Well, we're having a good time, you know.
Oh, this is good.
On the name Josh Rogaine.
You gotta say that.
Oh, we're back, by the
When
way.
he worked on that.
We're back.
We're back. I had to get that. I'm
You got
sorry.
that? Did you get it?
Oh,
All
yeah.
right. I don't even remember where we were. What the fuck were we
Talking about my father was hanging around with Frank Sinatra.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. He wanted to hang around.
Yeah.
Well, he actually hung around with Frank. No.
Here's the deal. My father only met Frank Sinatra once in his life.
Okay.
That was later in life. But when he was young, there was a famous club in Atlantic City called the 500 Club.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank Sinatra even got a song about his friend Jilly.
Okay.
And they made songs about Jilly owned it, the 500 Club.
Right.
And every Monday night, they had the Monday night card game. My father was in the card game with Frank Sinatra's best friend.
Okay. What kind of cards would they play? Do you know?
I know they played poker.
They played poker, maybe pinochle. They
Not
weren't
sure.
playing. Did anybody play the Italian? Like, I grew up playing, like, La Scopa and Briscola, like, in Brooklyn. Like, was anybody playing that when you were a kid? Like, the Italian cards?
I remember playing them. I guess they had different. When I grew up, they were playing AC Doocy.
Okay.
That was one game they played.
But with American cards, not with the Italian cards.
That is American cards.
Yeah.
And they used to, but the thing was, with those games, like I would only be 15 or 16. The pots were real big already. These people were already professional gamblers. So that's why I don't have no desire to gamble. I grew up with all itinerant, degenerate gamblers.
I was the exact same way.
They had to go to the track every single day of their life. They had to play cards. They do like you would go into these Italian clubs. There would be so much smoke that you couldn't see from here to there.
Yeah.
That's what they did before they had Atlantic. That was before Atlantic City. And I'm trying to think. Ziganet was the big game.
Okay.
The loser got rubbed out.
So we were talking about it, like your father. He was also a dancer. He was into that. So like. He's delivering pizza. I mean, I thought that was really interesting what you mentioned earlier, where he would take the fire bricks and like put it in a wood box. Like that's amazing. Like we gotta get some, like, what do they call them now? I think they call them makers, Al. They call these people makers. There's these people named makers, right? And they're on Etsy, and they got a show with Ron Swanson. You know what I mean? The Maker Show. You know Ron Swanson with the mustache. He's on all the memes.
I know what Etsy is. That's a place where they sell like this custom stuff.
Yeah, they're like maker people, but we could maybe have them like
Nick Offerman.
No, his name's Ron Swanson, bro. Don't fucking correct me, young Brady. So, no, but we can, we can make a wood box, and we'll do a video
like
of
those bricks you got out there. When those bricks, put bricks in there.
Yeah, we'll put like fire bricks. We'll get a knife.
were.
I'm gonna find a maker. There's a bunch of them over here. Bushwick's full of
and you're
makers.
gonna start the new, and and you're gonna start the new hot box. It must have been real nice. Kept the pot nice
We're gonna
and dry.
try it out. We're gonna do like
Yeah, he was doing it.
What's the?
He was able to carry it. It was heavy. That was the issue. It was heavy.
Oh yeah,
bricks
because
in
it's
there.
wood
And
there's bricks.
Yeah. But
Yeah, what if we made like a little cart?
well, the thing was they only had to get it from inside the pizzeria to the truck. That's how. Listen, these people wanted it perfect. And then when my father first started, they didn't even have pizza boxes. I think there's one guy left. I forget where he is around here. He still Federici's maybe does it. He wraps it in butcher paper and then he puts the bakery string on it, and that's how you take the.
That's how I think Grimaldi. I don't know if they still do it like that, but Grimaldi's I think used to do that
like
too.
That? Yeah,
not that long ago, like when I was like a teenager.
The grease would drip out of that. The brown paper is not going to prevent.
Well, they would get a. I think what he was doing, he was getting like the cardboard cutout. It was like a big
cake circle.
Yeah, it was a big cake circle. They throw it on there, then they throw the bag over it, and then they wrap it up.
And you know what I don't see anymore? It was a big thing for a while. It was called the Chicago hot bag.
Okay.
And they didn't put their pizza in a pizza box. They put it in a plastic bag. And they slipped it in the plastic bag and they sealed the plastic bag closed.
Really?
I've seen a few of them in my life. But then it became like not a thing anymore. But that was a thing like when I first started in the early 80s.
That doesn't sound like it would work too good though, no? Because all the steam would get trapped. It didn't matter.
This is what they were doing.
Yeah.
They would seal it.
I want to hear what they were doing.
It was like a giant Ziploc bag.
Well, did you hear the Joe Riggio episode we did? He was talking about a lot of, Joe Riggio on My Pizza Suprema?
I watched that one, but I don't. Sometimes I start falling asleep when I'm listening.
No, it's okay. Don't worry. Well, one of the things that was interesting that he was talking about, because his father started the place in whatever it was, like the 50s, early 60s, and he was like, Nino, we didn't have a refrigerator, like a dough refrigerator, until 1988.
Yeah, he was real old.
Yeah. And he
had the wooden boxes that they put in the.
Yeah, he didn't like the water. He was very mad on the episode. I'm a wooden box fan, but to Joe, and to each his own. You know what I mean? Joe thought they were disgusting. Joe and Joe was talking about actually Fortunato's Bakery has them. They're these metal boxes that you put the things in, and he said they got a new pizza table and it had racks in it, and they would just put the metal boxes in, but they wouldn't even refrigerate the dough. And you hear about that in Italy too. When I first went to Italy, they were telling me, bro, you got to use wooden boxes and you can't refrigerate the dough, which is, in my mind, that's crazy talk. You know what I mean?
Let me interrupt you.
Yeah, tell me.
That comes under the big category of dough management. Let me tell you something that's a baking secret that keeps me thrilled when I think about these things.
Mm-hmm.
That keeps, as a baker, keeps me interested, that I'm shooting like an arrow every time.
Right.
When you make the dough, there's two things that you're considering. The number one is, when is the dough meet the oven? And number two, when is the product going to be consumed? Because I'm making a fresh product every day. When I grew up, they didn't refrigerate that. And I think about what changed over the years. My father had a big giant tub that you could still get these big tubs the size of the table, and they would throw the dough in here. My father used to make the dough before he went to bed at night. Then he got up in the middle of the night and he punched it all down. Then when he got up in the morning, he'd make the bread and it would come out. That's how they made it. But the reason was they were doing this was because the dough probably didn't have enough protein, like these high gluten flours now. So the dough was not forgiving. If you didn't do that and give it that extra punch down, it wouldn't have the body that you needed to make the bread. That the Italians didn't make it in a pan.
Right.
So if you were going to make it in the pan, that wouldn't be an issue because the pan conforms to the pan. But the Italians want their bread the way you see it in a bag like that, to go in the oven like that. So it's got to have more body to it. That's the word we use, more body. So if the protein was only 11 or 12%, when they put it in there and they punched it down, that gave it the tensile strength.
But you're talking about for bread baking, though, right?
Right. Now listen, here's the definition of a pizza. A pizza is just a good piece of bread dough that's made thin. It's a thin piece of good bread dough with sauce and cheese on it.
Here's the only issue, though.
Go ahead.
So when you're like making bread now, like think about like the size of like the kind of oven that you have. It's a huge size. You can fit a lot of bread, right?
Yeah.
So how many pieces of bread do you think if you filled up the whole entire oven that fits? 150.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then what do you got, about a 40-minute cook time on the bread?
Depends on how big it is. If it's only like a little roll, 10 minutes.
Okay.
Now, if you start getting into big loaves of bread, could be an hour.
What
It's
about
all
like
about the heat
let's talk about a
penetration.
baguette. Let's use that
Okay,
as like a
baguette,
good.
you probably get that out in 20 minutes.
Okay, so you got 20 minutes. So with bread, right? You're making your dough.
Yeah.
You're like you're saying you're
In a batch.
In a batch.
Yeah.
You're fermenting it. You're punching it down. You're shaping it. You're letting it rise, and then you're cooking it off.
Yeah.
You're doing it all at the same time.
Yeah.
With pizza, right? It's a la carte.
Go ahead.
Well, it's a la carte.
Yeah, I understand
So
what you're
like,
saying. Everything's individual.
So like if you use that system without like refrigeration,
Yeah.
the pizza that you make at 4 p.m. and the pizza you make at 9 p.m. are going to be completely different
That's
because
true.
one would have had like 5 hours more fermentation
Yeah.
outside if it's not in the fridge to slow
It's
that
a
down.
mind-blowing thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, my father had all ways to try to manage the dough.
Okay.
Okay, he had all different ways to manage it. But bottom line is, no matter what, it's going to be good. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be good whether it's got, and it was very important that he always let the dough rise twice. Because this is a nutritional thing, that once you make that dough, and then you shape it into the loaf of bread, and then it rises again. It rose twice. I scaled
Right.
the dough. To me, this is like sacred almost, because you can rob the customers and they won't know. I'm making
Right.
your bread. Like there's snack food, and then there's the food that you're counting on for your nutrition. I'm the baker. You're dependent on me not to rob you. So now when I come in, I put the fresh yeast in there. I scale it off, okay? Once it doubles in size, I make it into a loaf of bread. Or if I don't make it into a loaf of bread, I take it and I shape it into a pizza, and then I put it in those retarder cabinets, and I let it rise again in there. And
Right.
before I make the pizza, I'll take my hands and I'll pat it down because people don't want it too thick. But I got to let it rise twice. When it rises twice, here's the secret that was learned by trial and error over hundreds of years, that science now will prove, but they learned by trial and error, is that the nutrition is broken down to the size that a yeast molecule can digest. Once it's been pre-digested by the yeast molecule, all the nutrition that's in that wheat will now get into you.
Yeah. So
This is, I can't prove all this to you, but this is what I'm reading.
No. It's definitely,
Yeah,
there's been a lot of
yeah.
people like working at the science of it.
Sometimes 3 times.
Here, let me break down for you a little
Good.
bit what I know, because
Good.
you're not wrong what you're saying.
Yeah.
Basically, one of the biggest problems in the last century.
You can use the refrigerator. I don't. You ask me personally if I have an issue.
Yeah.
I don't. It's
the
all
issue's
about your
not the
dough
refrigerator.
management.
Well,
Go ahead.
well, so basically, it's like the problem that's happened over the last century with bread making that didn't exist before because you didn't have commercial yeast. And commercial yeast isn't bad.
No,
Okay,
no,
I want to make that very clear. Commercial yeast isn't bad, but the problem is that once you, like, if you were to take like what they used before they invented commercial yeast and whatever it was, like the 1910s, 1920s, really though, even though they invented it, like let's say they invented it in 1920, everybody didn't start using it until like the 40s, 50s, or 60s, like when it got a wholesale adopted. Now, if you were to take like what was before that, which would have been like a Biga, wild yeast starter culture, Lavon, whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing. It's just fermented flour and water to use as your leavening agent. Now, like when you start adding more of that as a percentage of your flour, like you can add 10%, 20%, 30%, you can add 80%.
Talking about yeast?
Right? We're talking about what was before yeast? What was before you could buy yeast?
Well, listen, I don't remember that, and I remember my grandfather buying yeast. I know how they make yeast. Would you talk to these big companies, big French companies? that make the yeast.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I know about yeast. Out of 15,000 strands of yeast, there's only one strand of yeast that will make that bread rise up.
Correct.
Become real light like
Correct.
that. That's cerevisia.
Okay, but we had
they
bread.
use it in everything.
But we had bread in human civilization for 8,000 years.
And that's why the bread, when you go back to the Romans, they would scrape the bottom out of the wine bins and use the yeast in there.
Maybe.
No, that's what they knew they did. You remember how the wine would come in these big clay jugs?
Yeah.
And they, after the wine was out, there'd be bacteria down the bottom. They would scrape that out and use that. They had some kind of, but it wasn't going to come real light and
But
big.
you still had to mix flour and water together and ferment that and make a starter culture.
Well, it won't come nice and light. And
Yeah,
here's the
well.
problem. Listen, I did all my experimenting with that. When they say sourdough, bottom line is all you're doing is taking a piece of dough from yesterday and throw it in today's dough.
Sort of. Yeah. So it goes back to what you explained. Yeah. So when you make a starter culture of any kind, you're creating lactic acid. Also, when you take a dough, even if you make it with like straight up yeast, right? As long as you're not putting too much, you're creating lactic acid. Now,
that's not the only acid. There's actually three.
There's acetic acid. There's lactic
and
acid.
There's one other one.
Okay, so
I just got done reading an article about that. Here's the latest thinking.
Let me finish real quick,
go ahead.
So these acids, what they do is they create starch resistance, which lowers the glycemic index of the bread. And then there's the scientific consensus isn't really consensus about this, but I use common sense for certain things where they don't have consensus. And it seems pretty obvious that when you make like a well-fermented product that you're breaking down the gluten, you're allowing more nutrition. And I mean, but just alone where there is consensus, where you're bringing down the glycemic index, so you're not getting blood sugar spikes when you're eating these products, is definitely a very important thing. The problem that happened for 100 years with mass-produced bread is sometimes they put so much yeast that the yeast load is so large that you're creating bacteria, or you're creating carbon dioxide before you could create the lactic acid and these other things. So you're like aerating the dough instead of fermenting the dough. And now the glutens and all the nutritional content isn't being made readily available. You're not bringing down the glycemic index. So the glycemic index on breads that when you just throw a block of yeast in is higher than pure sugar. It's less than high fructose corn syrup, which is 100 out of 100.
Man.
And that's no good for you.
Information?
Science. So glycemic
Where'd you
index.
study all that at?
Books, internet, a lot of different
sounds
things.
interesting. Yeah.
It's
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of
the glycemic index stuff is
I
very.
understand about glycemic index.
It's very well understood because of diabetics. So it's something that's really, really studied, and the information's out there. Some of the stuff with bread, like when we talk about digestibility and stuff like that, like there's no money in studying that. There's no money in taking hard looks at it. So like a lot of Italians, that's a hot word in Italy right now. They're like, okay, digestibility.
Yeah, that's what I heard them using that.
What does it really mean? Does it mean that you're breaking down the glutens to a level where your body can easily digest it? I mean, it makes sense, kind of, off the top of your head. I'm not a fucking scientist, though. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't know. But, like, I mean, I can look at a dough that you throw a block of yeast in and you put it in the fridge and you take it out the next day, or you leave it out, and you can open it up and you can see the actual gluten, and you can see, like, that it's broken down based on, like, fermentation and hydration, and those things are relative to each other. Anyway.
I'm glad you told me all that.
Yeah.
Now that gives me more things to pick around in my brain.
Yeah.
Because I already have a lot of thinking like that.
You know what I want to do? I want to get them to, you could get, this is a really good book.
Yeah.
Modernist Bread. So this is like a 5-part book. Everybody should have this book, by the way. Modernist Pizza is coming out soon. Modernist Cuisine, not a fucking sponsor. But Yeah, we'll talk to. Hold on.
That was great, Nino. I mean, that was a lot of good insight there.
We're good friends with them, but they don't really talk about that so much. But they talk about kind of like a lot of different things. It's very like concise stuff when it comes to like where some of the problems are. Like not so much with nutrition. They do get into nutrition, but it's a really good like. Kind of, back in the day, what did you didn't have a supercomputer in your pocket, so what'd you do? Yeah. You had an encyclopedia, right?
Yeah.
This is like a really good encyclopedia to have in your house.
Back in my day, you went and you had to search out old timers and go pick their brains.
Right. Well, when I was a kid, we didn't really. I mean, we had the internet, but it didn't work that well, and nobody really had it. Like we did. Yeah, my family certainly didn't have it. Like I had an uncle who had it. I had 2 uncles that had it. But if you were wrong about something, or no, if you were arguing on the street with a kid about something, and you were like. Listen, the sky's blue because of A, B, and C. And he was like, no, it's blue because of D, E, and F.
Yeah.
The right person would win the argument. The person that was loudest that could get the most people on his side. And then what you had to do was you had to go to your rich uncle's house who actually had an encyclopedia set. Or you had to go to the library.
Yeah.
And then you had to figure it out. And by the time you figured it out and brought the information back, everybody was like, what are you, a fucking asshole?
I think that was one of Yogi's famous lines. Go look it up. Look at a book.
So what kind of, were you guys like, what year was it that you took over the pizzeria?
Okay, this was the nicest story.
Yeah, tell me.
When I came back from the Air Force in 1979, first I was partners with my father. And then he was working for me. All right, then we had that arrangement. Then he was working for me. Then after that, then he left, and I took over. So it was kind of like easy. Like there was no. I remember when he told me to go down to the county and take out my license, and I got a license that I took out from the county. Then when it became my business, then he sold me the business for whatever, so much money. But it was never like he was. My father, God rest his soul, whatever he told me in his life was a God's honest truth, but I was too young and too stupid to believe whatever he was telling me. You don't believe that they're telling you the truth.
Right.
But I remember standing there, walking in the door with him one day, and he says to me, son, we're going to go to work one day. He says, son, don't do as I do, do as I say. Yeah. And then he also said, all these people that are knocking you for me trying real hard to start to get that business going bigger, he said, their lives are already ruined. That's why they knock you.
Yeah, miserables.
It's all about, everything was, with me, it ain't even about the money. It's about absorbing this Italian philosophy. You understand? I love the philosophy of it all because they have all these contravailing truths. The first truth is that you do something, then they'll give you another truth why you can't do it. And then you're like stuck in the middle of these two truths. This will be a truth and that'll be a truth, and then you can't reconcile the two.
So now like you're in 1979 and he makes you a partner?
Yeah. And then so then we have to build up the business because he didn't have it big enough for the two of us. So he was over there making the bread. And then I was out, I had to go sell the bread, and I help him make it. And then after we made the bread and I go sell it, then after that we came back and we started making pizzas because I wanted to make pizzas. He wasn't doing the pizzas till that night. So I wanted to make pizzas in the afternoon. I realized it takes a lot more time and a lot more work to make the pizza than anybody thinks it does.
It does.
It takes a lot more time. And it takes a lot more work than you think it does.
Well, it's an a la carte thing, and I think I mentioned this before, where it's like with the bread, you're making the dough, you're shaping the dough, you're loading it all up, and then you're selling it throughout the day.
And there's good money in bread too. That's what he told me.
Oh no, 100%. Yeah. But with pizza, you're waiting for an order to come
Right.
in, and then you got
It's a lot of
and then
service.
the final shape, and then
Service,
the sauce and cheese.
service
Then you gotta
costs
turn
money
it.
too.
Yeah.
It says you're not charging them for the product.
Sure, you're not
or
making 100 pizzas and then selling them
and you're not
throughout the day.
but you're not charging them for the service. The service is like, I got a friend, he works in a restaurant. You know what he shows me? When he's in a fancy restaurant, this is how he shows me. At the fancy restaurant, when there's no customers, there's 3 guys standing by the door like this. That's how they stand in the fancy restaurant holding the menu. And then when somebody walks in, boom, they get picked off the wall, go follow that customer over to the table.
Right.
I mean, it's stone just like that.
Sure.
It ain't like nothing other than that. He's standing right there with his arms up against the wall. That's how they stand there.
Right.
Boom, 3 guys standing there waiting for 3 cup parties to come in.
Sure.
So when you say a la carte, yeah. Listen, I was so lucky. I got this guy. You got to see the review. He knows me since I'm 6 years old. He was in the restaurant business. He owned all fine restaurants all over the United States. Now I guess he's retired now. He's too old to open another restaurant. He's in his 80s. He's been following me on Facebook. He gave me the most beautiful review. But I remember going to this guy's restaurant when I was 6 years old. And this guy's writing reviews about me now.
Where was the restaurant at?
He had this famous restaurant called the Tally Ho in Union, New Jersey on Gallopin Hill Road. It's still there. But it looks like from the outside, it's a historic landmark. They want whoever buys it, they have to leave it like that. It's a historic landmark. But I'm coming back from the day when every single thing was made fresh from scratch at these restaurants. It's not like that no more. They have a lot of pre-prepared food. I could take you to a place in London. It kind of hurts my feelings to see it, but they got a big factory. I don't know what it is, 200 feet by 200 feet, and they make all the 5-gallon pails of everything that you see in all the delis and all the restaurants. It all comes in a
yeah.
Whether it's potato salad, macaroni salad, coleslaw. It's all made in this place. I don't care what they tell you. If you go to Jewish deli, they made it. It's coming out of this factory, coming in a 5-gallon.
Yeah. No. You see that at almost every bodega in New York City. So when you like, what year did your father pass away?
He's gone. Let's see. He was born in 1922, and he died when he was 80.
So
Was that 2000 and...
Oh, so he was. So when you went parties with him in 1922?
79. He was probably 59, 60 years old. My father was such a beautiful
So like
guy.
2002.
Yeah, he died in 2002.
So-
It doesn't seems like 10 years ago. But
So
it's gonna
you
be
guys
20.
were running the business together for like almost 22 years, 23 years.
No. I came back in 79. By 86, he was gone.
What are you going to do?
Well, then he wound up driving the school bus.
Okay.
That's what he did, because he couldn't do that. Listen, it was so sad, because he only could work. He would still come and help me.
Yeah,
For like an
yeah.
hour here, 2 hours there, but he couldn't give you like even 5 hours. But to sit there on his ass and drive a school bus, or a regular
go do
bus,
it.
he could do that.
So now we're
So that's
in
how these, like that old guy
1986.
Calamus. When I saw you Calamus, you know what he told me? 2 things. Number 1, no standing around, and number 2, you better do something about your pension, because you ain't gonna have one when you retire, when you work for yourself.
Right.
These are the hard facts of life. It's nice to have all that, but these are the considerations that you better take care of. Or 40 years is gonna go by and you ain't gonna have nothing.
Copy. So when you take over, or your father kind of like semi-retires in 1986,
Right.
and are you still doing the bread, or are you just like focused on pizza now?
Listen, I love doing the bread. I can't tell you how sick it is. When I first came back in 1979, I was working 135 hours a week because I was 22 years old. I could do it.
Right.
I used to do what my father did. That's how he.
And how
ran
many
it.
like loaves are you doing?
Probably, listen. It's
150?
Yeah, that's hard to do more than 150 loaves with that system.
Right.
If you had the right system, you could do 500 loaves like it's nothing. Those guys that have the big revolving oven,
Sure.
that guy I told you about, Gambino, he had an oven like Santillos had. And when I worked there for 3 and a half years, I worked with this old guy, Uncle John. Uncle John ran the brick oven. And they had a system. each guy had to do 4 bags with the revolving oven. Now, 4 bags is each bag you get 150 loaves of bread out of. So you had to do 600 loaves of bread by yourself on a shift. That's murder. That's a lot to do. Make the dough, scale the dough, roll the dough, bake the dough. You know how much we got paid?
I have no idea.
$40.
$40 for the day.
To do all that.
And then, yeah, that's...
I could have, listen, it wasn't even minimum wage. I told you, why did I do it? Because I wanted to go do
Hold
it.
on, we got to take a little break, right? We got like something's going on. We'll be right back. I'm really sorry, everybody. We had like some situations going on. Logan, who everybody knows, our 150-pound Rottweiler, took a giant shit upstairs, and there were alarms going off, and all kinds of stuff happened. But we're back with the great Al Santillo, and I'm super
Psyched.
happy to be back. I just picked up a bunch of dog shit. That was super fun.
Well, he's the New York version of Josh Rogaine.
Josh. I actually modeled this whole thing off of Josh Rogaine.
I get the vibe.
Josh Rogaine, great man. We love Josh Rogaine.
Love Josh
He's
Rogaine.
the Johnny Carson of this
our age.
of this podcast thing that we got going on. So, all right, we got your father up here.
Yeah.
So you took over the pizzeria came in 79.
Right.
And then in 86, your father more or less bowed out, semi-retired.
Yeah.
So now are you just doing mostly pizza at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to push the bread.
Right.
But remember I was telling you I was working 135 hours a week. Maybe by this time, I'm still working a ton of hours. You know?
So what year is this? And what's this picture?
My father looks like he's 60 years old there. And I got that freezer in the back. So that freezer, I know I bought that freezer at least 30 years ago. So what's 30 years ago?
30 years ago is 1990.
All right, so then...
So he still used to come in after,
He was the greatest old man you could ask for.
Right.
He was the greatest old man.
Rest
Everybody loved him. They called him Shapey. They called him Sonny. He was one of 7 kids. He was the youngest of 7 kids. Everything was old Italian way. He didn't get raised by his mother and father. He got raised by his older sisters. That's how it was that they passed that down. So his Aunt Helen raised him and his Aunt Angie raised him. And then when I was little, like 6 or 7, Aunt Angie used to come over. And before the place opened up in the evening, me and Aunt Angie, we used to cut the big bar of cheese. Remember, it comes like in a 6-pound cuke. That's the real name for them, cukes, the big bars. We used to cut them with a knife or the dough chopper into little cubes.
Okay.
And that, I must have been 6 years old. And that's when I remember first helping my father make the pizza. And you go to Spirito's restaurant today, he still cuts the same way, the cheese the same way with the knife.
Is Spirito still open?
Listen, Spirito's is still open. He's asking like $2 million or something. You don't want to sell it if you're asking $2 million.
He's selling the whole building and everything, obviously, right?
Right. But nobody's going to buy it for that kind of money.
Right.
So, anyway, one of those Spiritos is my father's godfather. That's how we're like related, but not through blood.
Okay.
My grandfather, that was his hangout. They tell all the stories was, you know why they got rid of the white tablecloth tables?
Tell me.
Because when the boys came down to collect, they counted your tablecloths. So if you didn't have tablecloths, you were making a statement that you don't pay.
Right. That's fucking interesting. So I know there's a ton of...
Wait, I'm not done yet. It was $1 a tablecloth. And they had enough manpower to have a guy there to count you, because they owned the linen company.
Yeah.
So they knew how many covers you did. So you got charged like $1 a cover. That was for whatever. But if you didn't have the tablecloth, how were they going to charge you?
So for those who don't know, Spiritos is like this old. How long has it been there?
From
It's
the
like
early 30s.
Yeah, so like almost 100-year-old restaurant in Elizabeth. It's one of the last.
Yeah. That
now
never changed.
Apparently. And did you used to go there when you were a kid, or not really?
I spent a lot of my childhood going there because they were a customer. Let me tell you this story. When I was first starting to learn how to make bread, I could make 50 loaves of bread at a time. That's the most I could do. It was like 12 or 13. That's when I was 13, I became fully fledged. I could do the whole 150 loaves by myself. So they used to call me up, make 50 loaves for Spiritos on Saturday, make 50 loaves for Spiritos on Saturday. So one time I got the phone call, double the order. They must have all been drunk. Spiritos was busy. Make Spiritos 100 loaves of bread. I burnt every loaf of bread in the oven. Because I couldn't do 100.
So let me ask you a question. It's something I've always been really interested in, and it's really, really hard to like find out this information. But so when you got in, obviously you were around the pizzeria before '79, correct?
Yeah. I was born in there.
Do you remember like any different kinds of flour, or tomatoes, or cheeses that aren't like around anymore, or something like that?
They had this bag of flour called Zepp.
Okay.
And the big supplier was Metzendorf. And my father used to think he was a big shot like Metzendorf. And they both like to chase women around, but Metzendorf has more money. So this is how it worked back then. If you got too far behind on the flour bill, instead of Metzendorf getting mad at you, he would charge you more. Say the bag of flour was $15.
Right.
You got behind $1,000 on Metzendorf. The flour became $16.
That's actually a pretty good system.
Well, that's
you need the flour.
Listen, and the guy was Metzendorf. You picked him on the phone, and you talked to Metzendorf.
And you still owe the principal, right?
Yeah, you still got to pay that off.
You still got to pay it off.
Yeah.
He's just going to bang you out. He's like, oh, no more flour for you. You momo, and you're paying more money.
$16.
Yeah, you're paying more money. That's your vig.
Yeah, but you still bought it off of Metzendorf because
you had to.
Well, you didn't have to, but you had a loyalty and a respect. You kept buying it off of Metzendorf. You could have got it someplace else and been a jidro.
And what kind of flour was it? High gluten?
Here's what happened. They didn't have high gluten back then. They only had patent flour. I never heard about high gluten flour.
Okay.
I don't know when high gluten flour came out.
Right.
Might have came out in the 80s.
Like the General Mills all Trump.
Yeah.
Like
that, I found out how they get the protein content so high. Just before they harvested, like not too long before, they came and they sprayed the field with nitrogen, and that ups the protein.
Okay.
They're not doing anything really wrong, but they're giving it extra nitrogen, which is a natural thing, nitrogen. So they give the plant nitrogen.
Yeah, sure.
And that ups the protein.
Yeah, I know with Caputo with their Nuvola Super that they just came out with.
Yeah.
Because they won't do any of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're kind of like their company's like, okay, if we can't do it all natural, we don't want to do it type of thing.
Yeah.
So what they did to make it stronger,
higher protein.
To make it higher protein, is they found a. It's weird because a lot of people there's kind of like a disconnect in the communication between Italy. So when I first asked Mauro and Antimo Caputo, I was like, what did you do to this flour to, make it work for New York style?
Yeah.
The Nuvola Super, not the Americano flour, but the Nuvola Super flour.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, we use fermented grains. And I'm like, so you take the wheat berries and you put them in a vat of water and ferment them? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, so you do sprouted grains? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, we're at a disconnect. Like, what you're saying in English doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And what it is they have like a wheat supplier that harvests the wheat really late. So during the rainy season. So it's almost like, I would call it like semi-sprouted. It's like not like a thing.
They leave it on the vine to the very last minute.
Exactly. They leave it out to the rainy season right before it's about to fall off. Yeah. So it's almost like germinating. And that changed the complete chemical structure of the actual grain. Well, you've heard of like sprouted grains before?
Yeah, I
No.
heard of that.
Yeah,
you can
so
buy
it's
them in the
like-
supermarket frozen. Ezekiel bread.
Right.
I looked into all that.
Well, think about it like this. So, like, all right, you got tomatoes, right? You got sun-dried tomatoes, and you got semi-dried tomatoes. And the semi-dried tomatoes are still soft. So it's like, I don't know. That's like a weird but maybe good analogy that everybody can
But
understand.
you have to try it and see. My father was a great baker, the greatest baker I ever met. He told me you judge the product by the finished product. And then he would show you how the finished product's supposed to be. Then he would tell you there's more than one way to skin a cat. So you could do whatever you want. But if the finished product comes out, great. And number two, I'm under like the old-fashioned rules where I can only change the product if I'm going to make it better. And that's
Right.
really tough because a lot of times I like to change things, but I know I can't change them if it's not going to come better. So a lot of times,
Yeah.
I'm stuck doing it the same way I've been doing it forever because I can't find a way to make it come better and change it.
I definitely hear that. One of the advice that like I give people like today, like if you got like if you got like a couple extra scrolls, I think, I mean, if you're really passionate about your craft, like I'm not rich or anything, but like, instead of going to the baseball game and the fancy restaurant and buying nice shoes and nice clothes and nice cars and things like that, I spend my money on, things within my craft. So I just purchased like this very small spiral mixer that I could do 1 kilo of dough at a time. But it's the same as the giant spiral mixer that I use.
I'm listening.
Yeah, so now I can do like 1 kilo mixes and I can play with whatever I want. I could, play with the hydration. I can use different starter cultures. I can, do different things and make it one at a time. And if it works, so I'm not wasting a whole entire batch, it's able to be scaled up.
Yeah.
Because if you try
That's
making
true.
a small batch with like a large mixer
Yeah.
and then you try the same recipe with a larger batch, it's going to be completely different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the
It's-
flour doesn't always come consistent either. Listen, the miller is very important.
Right.
You have a very good miller. He's before he does anything, he's blending those grains
Yeah.
to come out with that protein level.
100%.
That all happens before he like. They'll take a grain that's 12% and 14.5%, and they'll blend it. They're looking for that percentage number. You know what they're talking about. You know what I found out? I found that about a while ago, but I did research on it. You know what clear flour is?
Never heard of
Google
it.
that sometime.
I'm going to Google it right now. Pull that shit up.
You don't want to know what clear flour is.
Brady. What is it? Tell us.
It's something
here.
that
We're here to learn right
Yeah,
now.
but it's something that you got to read up on. It's not, but it's good and it's bad at the same time. Like little guys are not using clear flour, but the big suppliers, like I was talking to these guys that all they do is sell flour. It's mostly all the big guys when they're making a lot of money, they start
So
buying clear
I'm
flour.
Googling it right now. King Arthur sells 3-pound bags of it.
Okay.
It says first clear flour. First clear flour is what remains after milling patent flour, giving it a darker color. Oh,
Where you reading that at? That's not what that was.
no, I'm reading it on my phone.
Okay.
And higher mineral content. Traditionally, Jewish bakeries used first clear flour to bake their rye breads. The protein in the first clear flour, balances the lack of gluten in rye flour because rye flour has very little gluten, and gives rye breads a loftier rise, better chew. Combine first clear flour with flours that typically produce denser loaves, like whole wheat, rye, spelt, and it will improve the rise of the final texture of the baked grooves as well as nutrition. It is higher in bran, ash, and protein than patent flours. So it's like kind of like an additive. Yeah,
No,
there
it's
you go.
flour.
There it is right
It's
there.
flour. Right there.
Well, no, but it's an additive in the sense that like you wouldn't
No,
make
it's
a
regular
whole
flour. You don't have it right.
Okay.
There's flour in that big. You buy a bag of clear flour and try it. It's It's just what he's
How
telling
much
you.
is this flour, Brady? Scroll down.
What is it? 3-pound bag.
3-pound bag for how much? Say add to cart.
$10.
$10.
It ain't cheap.
Yeah, but $10 for 3 pounds of flour.
That's expensive.
I mean, it's
$3
more.
a pound.
Yeah, it's more than expensive.
Yeah.
It's.
But you just want to try it.
So to put that into perspective, it would be $150 for a 50-pound
It's insane
bag.
because you're buying a little bag online. That's all those. Like you go to that guy's
Okay, so let's
Red
divide that
Mill or
by-
whatever. He's
okay.
charging you top
All right,
dollar.
so it'd be
you
like
know what I'm talking about?
37.
That guy Red Mill.
Right.
He's got good stuff. He's got a million different kinds of wheat, but he charges you a ton of money. You're just buying a little bit.
Go back up to that. The top.
You got to read up more on it.
No,
They're
I
giving
want
you
to.
their point of view on it. That's not the point of view that I got on
Is
it. But what
the remains after milling patent flour.
Right.
So, yeah, look up patent flour real quick because I remember looking that up like a year
I know
ago.
what patent flour.
What
patent
is it? Tell
flour
me.
is flour that's 12% protein.
I mean,
That's
there's a
what we
little
always
bit
made
more
the
to
bread.
it than that.
Well, no, that's the main thing. Then you could have. Then they go by ash content.
Right. Yeah.
But the main thing. Listen, when I buy flour, the main thing I want to know is what the protein.
Bakers often use the term patent flour to refer to baking flour. It is high quality commercial grade flour, milled product with the innermost endosperm of the wheat grain. The flour is low in ash and has a good white color and is the highest quality is called short or fancy patent.
Yeah, but they don't tell you what the. They should tell
Yeah,
you
go
what
down.
the protein
What is
content
patent flour made from? So patent flour is pure, made from the endosperm. Determines.
So I was always raised that you went by the percentage of protein. That's how I always bought it. And if they're not telling you there, then I don't know why they're not telling you that.
It's talking about. It's saying that it's made from the center part of the endosperm.
Listen, all flour is made from the endosperm. It's like
No, but it's saying the center part of the endosperm, so not the whole
they mean
entire
the
thing.
endosperm.
Huh?
They mean the endosperm.
Well, the center part of the endosperm, I don't even know. Here, Claudia, is King Arthur special fat flour the same as bread flour? It's made from, see, it says it again.
Yeah, but look,
center of the endosperm.
This is misleading. If they don't tell you what the percentage of protein is, this is misleading information. They have
Yeah,
to give
but I
that's the
think-
most important thing.
100%,
Yeah.
but the percentage of protein, and then you have two types of protein. You got glutamine and glutamine. And the percentage of those is going to determine like elasticity versus strength or something like that. And it's, it's saying like, look, it says lower ash content than standard bread flour because it's from the center of the endosperm. I mean, this is something we're definitely not going to be able to get to the bottom of here.
Not right there.
But I mean, people that are listening, and definitely comment in the things for everybody that knows. But I mean, I don't understand milling processes and like how do you separate the center of the endosperm in a fucking like little tiny grain this big from this big.
The outside of the endosperm.
From the outside of the endosperm surrounding it. Like, how would you even do that? Maybe there's like a sifting process that does that. Who the fuck knows?
We could go take a tour of
What about like cheeses and stuff? Like,
What about it?
like were they different? Was everybody using
this is what I
grande
was
back
trying
in the
to
day?
tell you.
Yeah, tell me.
How first you got to realize when pizza was first started, it was all by Italians for Italians. That's why Santillos is the way it was, because I had all Italian customers, and then the Americans learned to like it the way the Italians like it. They would learn the real way.
Right.
Then there's a thing that's called Americanizing or commercializing it to bring it mass appeal. So now, in general, the Italians like to taste all their ingredients and they like spice. Now, when you talk about Americans, you're talking in general, they like sugar, fat, and salt. Those are the main three things that you got to give them. This is just a fact of life. You give them those three things, you could become a millionaire. You don't have to give them oregano. You don't have to give them pepper. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm just trying to tell you, if you want to make a lot of money and commercialize the product, that's what you got to make. Now, Italians, everything has to be made from scratch with all fresh ingredients, with simple ingredients, but it has to be made from scratch every day. That's what I do over there every day. I start and make everything from scratch every day. I don't have anything that's pre-prepared. Like, that would be a big no-no. If I want fresh garlic, I got to cut up garlic. If I want onions, I got to cut onions. If I want peppers, I got to cut peppers. If I want to roast them in the oven, I will. But my father was a big stickler on that. There was two kind of pizza makers, even back in the early days. He called them canned pepper dudes. Mm-hmm. They would go, if you wanted peppers on the pie, they opened up a can of peppers, and they still sell them to this day. And they put canned peppers on the pizza.
Right.
But my father was not that guy. You could even buy onions in the can. You could buy everything in the can. That's what they were using.
Yeah, you could go to the grocery store today and buy anything in a can.
Same thing. So my father was the fresh stuff. If he caught you with like a jar of minced garlic, you didn't. That was the last time.
Those things are fucking disgusting.
Right. So that would be the end of you if you got caught with something like that.
Right.
So everything got to be made fresh from scratch, or it didn't count. So that's how Santillos.
So what about the cheese, though?
Okay, here's what happened. It was very interesting. When I told you Mike the Cosmo was the cheese man, I was in there every day because they sold bread in there. And he was making cheese. They bought the curd off Polio. Polio was the guy. This is what's interesting. And I'm proud to tell you this. When I was a kid, Polio, whatever the guy's first name is, and whoever them guys were, they made the rules on what cheese was going to be in America. Mm-hmm. Got it? Then, sometime in the 80s, I don't know when, the lawyers took over. Mm-hmm. What cheese is what the lawyers say it is. Now what it is if you go to buy whole milk cheese, it's got to be between 2.76 and 2.99% butterfat, because butterfat is what costs us all the money. Milk is 99% liquid, 1% butterfat, something like that.
Yep.
So that's where all the money's at when they're mass producing, and people buy 90% of the pizza guys buy by the price. They just pick up the phone, whatever one's cheaper, that's what they buy. They don't care if one is better than the other. I'm telling you what 90% of the business is out there. And even in New York now, when New Jersey got picked for better pizza than New York, the real reason is you got more, in general, not saying you, but if you go to an average pizzeria in New York, they're using the pre-cut shredded cheese with all the extenders in there, right? That's why the cheese got that nasty, like liquid comes out of there. That's the cellulose they put in a bag. And they've been doing it for years. Like I get my own Pecorino wheel. I buy the wheel from Sardinia or wherever, like the Pecorino Romano, 55-pound wheel, and I cut it myself and I grind it. That's what I put on my pizza. Like for my 64, that's a big seller. And that actually was how they made the pizza back in 64. I'm so proud today. I got my own cheese man again. I got that Leone Lantasini. I pick up the phone like I talk to you. They love me over there because they said, Al, we love you because you're not a guy that buys by the brand name. You buy by the quality. I know how to shop for quality because I know that much about the ingredients. So when you go back to the 1970s, early 70s, Mike the Cosmo used to buy the curd off Polio. Then if Polio went on strike, they used to go on strike all the time. He couldn't get the curd to make his fresh mozzarella. Sometimes you couldn't even get the other cheese. They had the best cheese at that time. No more, because they got bought by Kraft, and Kraft got bought by that other guy, Warren Buffett. So they're just about dollars and cents now. They're not about making quality no more. Polio used to be the best. No more. So now, what I'm trying to tell you in a nice way is Mike the Cosmo on the holidays would bring my mother fresh mozzarella to the pizzeria. While my mother would be making the pizza, she would be eating the fresh mozzarella. Mike would come over and says, listen, you don't put this on the pizza. This is for eating out of hand. Mm-hmm. Okay? So they even knew back then you didn't put that on the pizza. They put the other one that was called low moisture whole milk mozzarella, which was made by a different process.
Okay.
The fresh mozzarella they made by the curd, just like you make the pizza dough. I used to go there, watch him every day. He made it like in a sink with hot water while I was watching.
Right.
Then the thing that made it nice, that was the real treat, he would take it the same way you make bread and make it into little spoulets or dreiches and dortana, and he would twist it the same way you made the twisted up bread. And by him doing that and it aging like a day, it gave it like a certain indescribable, delectable taste.
So he would make the curd and then age it himself.
He didn't make the curd. You had to buy the curd off
Well, he
polio.
bought the curd, but he would stretch a curd,
Right.
put it into blocks,
Just
and
like
then
you
do
see
it
these
himself.
guys doing today, yeah.
Right.
And then he would, but talking about certain people with a lot of experience could make it better. Like I had a friend that his aunt made the homemade fresh mozzarella. Oh, I still dream about that. It was so creamy and rich. Even after I froze it and took it out of the freezer a month later, it was still the best fresh mozzarella I ever had. But the guy's aunt made it at home. I don't know what she did, but it was very, very creamy. So somehow that's what makes the fresh mozzarella better. It was I didn't use the fresh mozzarella forever because the issue was, and still some guys do it, they buy the fresh mozzarella that's not high enough in butter fat, and then when they put it on the pizza, it leaves like a wet stain where the mozzarella is. There's like a wet watermark on there, and it grosses a lot of people out.
Right.
Now, the reason I found out how to get around that, it's real hard to do. If your oven is truly like as hot as like they claim it is, like 700 degrees or something, and you put that little round pie in there, even if the fresh mozzarella isn't as high in butter fat, okay, it's going to go in there, it's going to go like that, and it's going to be okay. But it's a certain technique that you got to have it down like that. And if you becoming too busy, it's like that little oven you have out there, but I did it in my oven too. But if you don't have the temperature recovered to the right heat, if you become busy and the temperature's not recovering to the right heat, then that you're not going to get that effect. And it's a beautiful thing. Don't get me wrong. When it's done just right, it's great because I made it a few times. But the issue is, I got to have everything all calibrated so that when I make it like that, it comes out perfect. And you do have to eat it as soon as it comes out because when it cooks that fast, as soon as it starts to cool off, all the water in there, you start to notice that it's watery again.
Right.
The water's out. They used to go, oh, you got to eat it before it cools off, which was true. But they were eating that fast, so it wasn't an issue. You were taking it real thin, putting that stuff on there, dropping it into that 700-degree oven. It would cook real fast, and you hurry up and ate it before. It was like out of this world. So now this is what Leone does. I took the tour of his factory. He found a way to up the butter content in his fresh mozzarella ball. And I talk to these guys like I talk to you. Here's what happens. There's food color in all the cheese. They'll tell you. So now listen, they put
there's titanium dioxide,
well, whatever.
which keeps the color.
He calls it food color. He puts the food color in there. Now, when the butter fat is higher and he puts the food color in, it still stays kind of yellowy looking. But now if the butter fat's a little lower, it comes out of the same cooker. It comes in like a log. But if the butter fat's lower, then when they put the food color in, the fresh mozzarella is going to come whiter. And a lot of people, they buy with their eyes. So when they see it's whiter, they like that better because they don't know anything about something you buy with your eyes. You buy a better color. So they see it's whiter and they buy it. It's just a natural thing. The biggest thing that drove my father nuts was when you were making the bread, and I swore to God, it used to drive me nuts too. There was bakers, they would take a 10-ounce piece of dough, and everybody wanted that Italian bread. I don't know what chemicals they put in there because it wasn't just yeast. They could take one guy out a 10-ounce piece of dough. He could make the loaf of bread look this big, okay? But it was nothing in there but air. But the people, what? They bought with their eyes. That guy was making millions. You're taking advantage of people's whatever, their human nature. They see the bigger loaf. And they're not looking at that it says 10 ounces and the Santillo loaf is 16 ounces and it's smaller and it's denser. They don't know. They just see a big loaf of bread like this for 99 cents and they buy it. And this is what the bread game turned into. It's how big of it became quantity. Like you sold it by the pound, But the biggest thing was to go for was volume, so they could put an air pump on that. They somehow that's what the chemicals do. I could tell you different chemicals that they put in there, but they make the thing blow up like this, and then once it blows up, it doesn't collapse. That's what the problem with the patent flour. If you weren't running around there like friggin' out of your mind fast and didn't get that patent flour in the oven in time, it would go like that on you. That's what high gluten flour doesn't do. It's very forgiving. When you get high gluten, patent flour is 12% protein. If you only got, and then same thing, when you got I had real good luck with all-purpose flour, but it's not forgiving. If you don't get the all-purpose flour in the oven at just the right time, and I like that nice light airy effect. That's one of the effects that I'm looking for. I've been around checking out a lot of other pizzerias. The guy makes a Sicilian pie. A lot of they're like this. They're like lead like that. They're not light and airy. You know, they're giving you a Sicilian pie. It's dense. Mm-hmm. That's not what it's supposed to be, Neapolitan. It's supposed to be light and airy. I got people like you that go around. They're my intelligences. That I got guys that they own electrical contractors. They eat at a different pizzeria every single day, and they keep coming back to me, and they make reports. And these guys are from Italy, and they're right from Naples, and they know what the real stuff's supposed to be. That's supposed to come light and airy. If my stuff don't come light and airy, then it disturbs me because that's one of the effects that I'm trying to create. I want light and airy.
Yeah, like finding good Sicilians these days is it's a big problem. Yeah. I mean, I think it's personally. I mean, I've looked at a lot of places, and I've worked in a lot of places, and I've gained a lot of knowledge since then. Personally, like I think I could take you 2 blocks down. My boy Santo, he owns a place called Fazio's, 2 blocks away from here. One of the best Sicilian pies you'll ever have in your life. All right? But he uses the same dough to make the round, and the round's like, men's a men's. You know what I mean? Yeah. You need like a different dough to make.
Well, here's the, you got to be a really good baker. When I tell the story, when I was on Fios, my father was Neapolitan, and his first partner was Sicilian, so they hit it off. Mm. The Sicilians, they usually make their dough thick and heavy like this, like a brick, because I know Sicilians that were making it. It was like a solid glob of dough.
Well, they made the sfaccioni.
Well, it wasn't sfaccioni, but a lot of I don't know what you say, but when I used to go around, a lot of Sicilian pie was thick as a brick, and you couldn't even eat a half a slice because that's how heavy it was, like solid dough. Sfaccioni is really a Sicilian pie, but it don't have the sauce and cheese on it.
Well, sfaccioni's like the grandfather of the Sicilian and the Detroit style pizza.
I've seen it around. Not too many people making it.
Well, that's what existed in Sicily because pizza didn't. So when people came over here, they saw pizza was popular. They took the sfaccioni dough recipe and they put cheese and sauce on it.
That's kind of like what the focaccia is, like what that guy was making. You got to realize, in Italy, every town had its own way of making things. Every single town. Yeah. You could go to 100 towns, and everyone had a little different way of making it.
Oh, 100%.
That's what I'm saying. You got to judge it by the finished product of all the work that goes into it. But I know a lot of stuff about how the old timers did things, and that's why, like, I became in love with the craft because I saw all the hard work and knowledge and everything that went into what they're doing. It's just a shame that, like, the Bakers Union paid you crap, and then the Masons Union paid you 3 times what the bakers were making, so all the guys got out of the business. Same thing today. Mostly all the Italians got out of the pizza business. They either went into upscale Italian food or they went into some kind of construction business or remodeling or something. They got out of that business. Right. Not many Italians left in the pizza business in general.
Yeah, no, that's definitely facts, but there is a large number of kids that are taking over their families' places in the tri-state area they're reading and trying to get better.
Not trying to disagree with you. I'm talking in general. Like a lot of these guys,
in general, like
they got out of the business.
Yeah, no, tons of people got out of the business. There's definitely a contingent of 30-year-old kids that are taking over.
I see them around.
Yeah, and not all of them are going back and reading the books either. Some of them are just doing it. They're I know a lot of them personally, and like I know at least half of them, the fathers were like, yo, no, you're not taking over the pizzeria. You're going to go be a cop. You're going to be a city worker. You're going to be this. If you want the pizzeria after you get your pension, like, come get it. Yeah. And that's a thing in Italy, too. I don't know. Have you ever heard of Gino Serbillo?
Yeah, I heard of his name.
Yeah, so I mean, he was one of the most famous pizza makers in Napoli. I'm pretty sure that's his story. Is he joined the Carabinieri, which is like the state police.
Yeah.
And then once he got his pension, he took over his father's pizzeria because when he came of age, his father wasn't ready to retire. And I know a lot of guys in Williamsburg, at Bensonhurst, at Gravesend. And it doesn't matter, not just a pizzeria, but maybe the family has a pharmacy. Maybe the family has a pastry shop. Maybe they have a construction business. But by the time the kid turns, 18, 19, 21 years old, the father's not ready to retire. So they'll go work for sanitation. They'll go become a cop. They'll go
help them over
MTA.
there.
And then they'll help once in a while. But by the time 15 years goes by after that, in a lot of cases, now the father's ready to retire. He's got a pension. And he takes over the pharmacy, the pizzeria, the bakery, the pastry shop, the
nice
concrete.
Move. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I've seen it even go down in Italy. What about, I mean, we were just talking a lot about cheeses. But, like, where did you order it from back then? You were talking about this guy.
Oh, listen, this guy, the Cosmo... Dairy.
But where else? We talked about him. Okay, where else did you order?
Well, the Cosmo was the guy that
he would make it for the Polio. You said
Polio would deliver to him, and then he would bring it to us.
Oh, so you would get like the low moisture for Polio?
Yeah. That's what got it from
like
Mike
through.
The Cosmo.
Okay,
he
I got it.
That too, and that went on for a lot of years, and then after that. They would be like regular distributors, but they kept getting you to Polio. Polio was the number one brand. It was always this became like down and dirty. Polio had Jersey cows. They gave you better milk. Wisconsin was that other kind of cow, the Holsteins.
Right.
Just gave you more milk. So there was like always a battle who had the better cheese. I always favored the New York State cheese over to Wisconsin. I could tell the difference right away between New York State and Wisconsin. Now a lot of cheese, California might even be the biggest producer. A lot of cheese was coming.
Definitely still Wisconsin. Our producer is from there.
Yeah. I don't know if Wisconsin's number one anymore. California might be. But
fact check that, Brady. Yeah. I'm pretty sure they are.
Yeah. See, I think California's the number one pizza cheese. But
I know I see like those ads all the time for California.
I don't prefer their
real
cheese.
Milk.
Yeah, I don't prefer theirs. I've tried it. They always find a way to adulterate it. Even in California, if it tells you organic, don't.
I'm still getting Wisconsin for cheese. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, who's number 2?
California. I would.
All right, so it's close competition. California number 2.
Yeah. Wisconsin, they live and die by that shit.
No, but I'm saying for a while there, California was neck and neck with Wisconsin.
And
I remember that.
Huh?
I recall that. Yeah, they were always trying, but
yeah, they're always trying.
He's from Wisconsin.
I know. That's what he's probably gonna.
Bro, you know what?
Spin the news over there.
Hey, I can prove it. I can prove it. I'm not just lying.
You know what? Because knowing Brady, our producer, as long as I have, when I bring up cheese, he's so familiar
just took it away.
with it.
I was trying to read it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He's so familiar with cheese and has nothing to do with cheese in his life. But just because of where he grows up,
it just tells you the second largest producer. But in Wisconsin, 2.5 billion.
Well, so right here, look.
Oh,
what is that? What does that say, Brady?
I don't know. Number one's California. Oh, can't read it.
I can't either.
Hold on. Yeah, there it is. I can read it. California, you're only
2 million to 3 million. California's
Wisconsin took that seriously. They went.
Yeah, that's
right.
California's got they got 1 million to go.
New York's doing pretty good though with 870. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, New York's definitely coming up. Well, New York has had, over the past 15 years, they've had a real explosion in small farms.
That's true. You know what happened? You know what happened?
I do know what happened. Tell me what you think happened.
I know the people.
Yeah.
When New York became the Rust Belt, all these people that were living up there, they had nothing to do for a living.
Right.
So they started producing cheese.
This is when?
Well, whenever New York became the Rust Belt, probably 30 years already.
When they when you're
big
talking about
factories.
in northern New York where
Yeah.
the factories left.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I've always attributed, I know at least partially to like, there's so many guys because it's not cheap to open a farm.
No, without a doubt, no.
And there's a lot of guys that, they made their money in New York, whether it was on Wall Street, whether they were a lawyer, whether they were a doctor. And after doing it for 20 years, they're like, I want a simpler life. And they have the money and they dump it in. And then the dump of the money in and started this fire, they think it's going to be easy. And then it turns into something. And then, there was a news article I read a few years ago that said, like, if you go back to 1990, there were 200 farmers markets in the U.S. And now there's over like 40,000.
Yeah.
30 years later. So in 30 years, we went from 200 to like 40,000. Actually, fact check me because my numbers might be off, but I know it's something crazy like that. Like the farmers markets, you see them everywhere now. Yeah. So 30 years ago, and you were talking about them, they were around when you were a kid, you'd have the little farm stand. But in the 1990s, you couldn't fucking find a farmer's market. You know what I mean? It was like
you're right.
impossible because everything.
Not what they call a farmer's market.
Well,
today.
they got rid of all the the small farms, and that was a result of Nixon passing. They used to subsidize small farms, and then I believe it was 1973 they passed a law where they started subsidizing big crops like corn and things like that to compete with Mexico. So the problem with that was they so there's 8,600. So yeah, okay. So I mean my numbers were crazy, but increased from 2094 to 8,600 in 2000. So that's a over 400% increase in 30 years. That's a pretty big number for any industry. But
it's all hard work. That's hard work doing that.
Oh, it's crazy hard work. Yeah. It's insanely hard work. I mean, if it wasn't as hard as it was, I probably would have already done it by now. But
I remember I told you I was in the Air Force back in Texas back in 75 to 79. My friends, they lived in that area north of San Antonio, Randolph Air Force Base. Now that you reminded me, there was all these farms around, and when they had time off of work on the weekend, they used to help the farmer go and bale the hay.
Oh, okay.
I was never strong enough to do that. These guys were strong enough to bale the hay and throw it up on the truck and stuff by hand, like 500-pound bales. Like, I could never do it.
No.
If I had to do that, I'd be dead.
Been there.
You done
How
that?
do you think I paid for my clothes in high school?
Did you really?
Oh, yeah. Baling hay? Hell yeah.
Baling hay by hand?
Oh, no, not by hand, but like we'd fucking have to stack them and stuff.
By hand.
Really?
By hand, yeah.
Yeah, that's heavy shit.
You gotta pick up. What do you pick them up with, like hooks?
Oh, no. I mean, you would wear gloves if you were a bitch, but
right.
Like you just bare hand grab them and
how much does it weigh?
They were 50-pound bales, I want to say.
50-pound
Some of
bales.
them are 500.
Oh yeah,
pounds.
they make huge, massive bales too. Like those round bales get thousands of pounds
really
or something.
big.
But like typically 50 pounds is what you do.
Lifting them all day long.
Yeah, I remember going to visit Shaylin, my wife Shaylin's family. She
California.
lives. They're from El Centro, California, and there's all these fields with like just grass, right? And I'm like, oh, are those like sod fields? And they're like, no. And I'm like, what do you mean no? Like, I mean, they're just growing grass and rolling it up, right? Because you would see all the bales of sod rolled up. And they're like, no, that all gets shipped for big money to Japan to feed the Kobe beef cows.
Wow.
So they, they're like, that shit you buy in Home Depot, no, this is a different fucking thing.
That ain't sod.
That ain't sod. This is big money shit, they were telling me. I was like, all right, whatever you say.
And you know what? That hay, he might know. There's all different grades of that. There's high protein, low protein.
For the cows to eat?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's all different grades.
Oh yeah, for sure. Just like anything, you're gonna have different grades of your
So what about tomatoes, Al?
Well, it was always considered the California tomato was the best.
Okay.
And there's another thing I'm going to try to find out about. But that Lione, I've been leaning on him a lot because he's got the connections over there in Italy. But I've been trying to get to the bottom of this. I heard this one time, and I never got it confirmed. It's very, very complicated, all the subterfuge that goes on with the tomatoes coming from Italy. Mm-hmm. But I did hear that Italy is not allowed to sell tomato sauce in this country because of the competition laws. They're allowed to only sell tomatoes. Now, I noticed online I was able to find like little jars like that of tomato sauce, but nothing any bigger than that.
What, already ground?
You know, like when you go to regular pizzeria and you buy like the number 10 cans of pizza sauce from California or wherever they're coming from.
Right, like a 7-Eleven or
they mostly come
Tomato
from
Magic.
They mostly come from California.
Stanislaus mostly.
But that's not the only place they come to. Like New
Right,
Jersey
but,
has a small market of it.
Yeah, sure.
You know, if you're in Pennsylvania, they might can a few cans over there. Mm-hmm. But Italy is not allowed by law to sell that over here. The only way you can get the sauce over here is as a puree packed in with the marinara, with the San Marzano tomatoes. As far as I know, that's it. I've been researching that myself. Now, as far as the pizza sauce, California was always number one, and I'm very fussy about that. I could line up, this is how I was taught. My father used to get like 3 or 4 different brands, and then we would take like a little plastic spoon, and we would have this. Ferrara does the same thing as it calls cuttings, and then you taste them. Now, a lot of people don't know. Now, I'm very fussy about the pizza sauce, so I don't want to mention the brands, but I did find one brand that doesn't have any citric acid in it. Mm. Most of the other brands do, and I did my research, and as far as I could tell, the citric acid is in there. There's to balance the pH, because a lot of times tomatoes don't have the right pH. So, and I do more and more of my research. I don't know if this is all true, but this is just what my research is telling me. I didn't go and confirm it independently. That you can take, say you got 2 truckloads of tomatoes. They test the pH, and they can mix those tomatoes up somehow so that the pH will come out right. They'll take some acidic tomatoes and some tomatoes that don't have enough, and then they can pre-blend them. Then you won't have to put the citric acid in there. And
okay.
I like that because I can taste the citric acid in there. It's a turn off. But if you don't know the taste for that, it's not going to bother you because you're used to that already. But they do put this other kind of stuff in when you buy the tomatoes that are like pre-chopped already. It's something that's like one step up from citric acid. It's another kind of citric acid, citric nitrate, maybe. Because I don't mess with it, so I don't really have it on the tip of my tongue. But that's put in there to give it color and to keep the tomato pieces hard. And I can taste that. That gives it like a metallic taste. That's like another step down in quality.
Yeah, I mean, I have recently become a fan of the California tomatoes, but one of the problems is with the tastings is that California tomatoes generally, I mean, the biggest companies, they actually add like a pretty good amount of salt before they pack them. So if you're just opening the can and if you got like an Italian tomato and a California tomato, generally the California tomato is already seasoned when it's out of the can, and the Italian's not. Right. So you kind of got to like put that into perspective. You kind of got to like, instead of out of the can, you should make like a finished sauce with your salt, pepper, and seasoning, and then taste it. Because, I mean, think about it like.
Are you talking about tomatoes or pizza sauce?
Talking about cans of tomatoes.
Oh, that are chopped up already?
Whether they're whole or chopped up.
That's a whole nother world. They have it all broken down into that.
So do you understand what I'm saying, though? Yeah, California tomatoes are salted before they get put in the can, whether they're whole.
I even had a conversation with you once that when I was a kid, they put bay leaf in it, and now they put basil in.
Yes.
I used to. Now, sometimes I dream about that basil taste. That's laurel is another word for it.
Bay leaf, you mean?
Bay leaf. It has like a meaty taste.
Yeah.
That I kind of miss, that I'm craving, and I have to try to figure out some way to get that back in. I tried a bunch of times, and I really wasn't successful of getting that.
Get some bay leaves.
Well, I did do all that. And I did a bunch of things. I would take them and soak them in hot water to try to extract the flavor and put them in, but it really wasn't noticeable in the finished product.
Were you getting like fresh bay leaves or like the dried
I was
ones?
getting the dry bay leaves.
Yeah, try the fresh ones. You need to use fresh ones.
That's possible.
Yeah, if they were packing cans of bay leaves, they were definitely using fresh ones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, it's but were there like any brands out there that you remember that like aren't around today?
There was brands that they were there, they went out of business, and somebody brings back the name. The famous one was Flotta.
Okay.
Flotta. That was the best. Flotta was like the top of the line. Then the guy that had Flotta died. Flotta went out of business. Then I noticed it came back for a while that there was a big supplier over in New York called Ferro Foods, Ferro. And then I think he merged with some other company now. I may be wrong.
Not Ferrero, different one.
It is Ferro.
Okay.
He was really good, Ferro. He got good stuff, man. But whatever happened, he got absorbed by another company, Ferro. And but he had the real good Flotta brand.
Right.
So I get that was another California tomato. But the big one that goes back to like when my father first started, and I find this so interesting. When they first opened up in 1957 or whatever year my father was making pizza, I don't know if my grandfather taught Spiritos how to make pizza or they told him. That was the argument back and forth. 'Cause that's how Italians are. I know my grandfather taught you. No, my grandfather taught you. So long ago, nobody knows. But they used to take one case of Susie Bell puree and one case of full red pizza sauce, and they mixed them. Because it depends on the Italians where you're at. The Italians in the vicinity that where we're from, they wanted puree. They didn't want to see no tomato seed in there. They didn't want to see no pizza skin. They wanted puree on their pizza. So I don't know what the reason was, but they would mix one puree and one full red pizza sauce. And only certain people are going to hear this, so everybody ain't going to know. But that's the recipe of Spiritos, and that was the Santillo recipe. Then my father found this Flotta guy, and he liked it, and all the customers liked the Flotta, so he went to just using straight pizza sauce, and everybody was just as happy, and he didn't have to go and mix the two kinds of pizza sauce, the puree.
Right.
But now I ran into people that the guy was telling me he's from somewhere in New York. I don't know if it's Long Island, but they buy all the kind of pizza sauce that's got the little tomato chunks in there. Now, when I tried that, all my customers flipped out. They don't want to have no little chunks of nothing in their sauce. I heard about it from a bunch of people. So that didn't work in Elizabeth, New Jersey crowd. So not saying there's anything wrong with it. Now you got to go by like what your customers are thinking. If they had little chunks of tomatoes in there, they were totally against it. They didn't want to bite into some little thing chunk of something that they didn't know what it was. But it was like the tomato with the little chunks in it. There's some brand, I don't know if Bonta makes it or whoever makes it,
right,
companies that make it, but they're little pieces of tomatoes.
Sure. So what's you've been in the business now for
all my life,
all your life, a lot of years. Yeah. It's like 50 years.
I can't.
What's next for Al Santillo?
Well, right now I'm open 3 days a week, and mostly because I told you I hurt my shoulder, and I'm burned out from that COVID. They had me working double and triple shifts for first that bar stool came. I'm only one baker over there. I told you how my operation is. But it's crazy. When that place was super busy, from the time Barstool came to just like about a month ago.
Right.
It all hit me at the same time. The shoulder injury, my father had the same shoulder injury, and totally exhausted. Today's like I'm feeling a little bit better today. I came over here, I don't feel too bad. But so now I'm open 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm making enough money to get by. All my bills are paid, the building's paid, the house is paid. So as long as I got my health, I'll try to do the 3 days as long as I can. Maybe I'll get lucky. One of my kids will come back and he'll want to opened the place up a couple days a week. I got my fingers crossed. It's only certain people that you can let over there.
Right.
Because you have to have ownership interest. You got to really.
Absolutely.
You can't go over there, and no matter how many times I tried it with outside help, they're not going to do what they got to do. They'll start sloughing off whether they know, because they know what they're doing or they don't. But you got to constantly, like Vito Calamus said, there's no standing around.
Right.
You ain't reading the newspaper over there.
Right.
You're either making the dough or making sure that everything's ready. My father was so proud because he was doing everything at a high state of readiness. My father was in World War II, North Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
He raised me, man. You don't know, this guy was in World War II. You know what happens if I didn't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go make the bread? Came and dumped your bed out. Dumped you onto the floor. He went upstairs. Listen, he weren't escaping him.
Wasn't messing around.
And if mommy complained, she got some too.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that. Hey, the mother was protecting you.
Yeah.
They had all these customs. Once the boy was 5 years old, they cut the apron springs. You went with your father.
Right.
That's it. Now nowadays they don't cut. They never cut the apron springs.
Yeah.
Back then they cut them. Now you go with your father.
Yeah, you're gonna get your calzone broken.
That's it. So then I went with him, and that's when he started treating me like a man already. When I was only about 6 or 7, I used to have to go sell bread door to door. I had a little red wagon that I used to put a box of bread in, and I had a route. I only was allowed to go around the block. I knocked on every single door. And you know how much I got for selling a loaf of bread? Penny. That's what you got.
I don't even understand how that works.
Yeah, you got.
I really fucking don't.
Yeah, you got a penny a loaf.
So.
And you say if I sold 30 loaves of bread, got 30 cents.
That's fucking crazy. How do you survive on that?
Well, I was only like 10 years old.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that my father had.
Oh, you would make a penny.
Yeah, I got a penny. My forefather, he had to really work hard. Like that big loaf of bread, that big round loaf of bread like that. He was only getting 35 cents for that. He wasn't happy getting 35 cents for that big loaf of bread, but that's all he could get.
Yeah, but even when when I go to a place like an old school place and I buy a Semolina roll for $2, and I'm like, how the fuck are you making money on this? Like, this is crazy.
Is it worth your time?
No, yeah, 100%. Well, but now you got guys that are they're making $10 a loaf.
Well,
so now all of a sudden,
guys, or that guy went
I'll bring it to them.
He only got $3.60 for his big round bread, $3.50, and I guess I bought a Semolina twist. It was $3.60. He got good stuff over there. I bought you his Torelli's.
Look
Torelli's
up.
Wasn't crazy about.
Brady, pull up Bushwick Artisanal Bread, and the place will come up.
Okay.
So this is right down the street from me. This is across the street from a White Castle. This place.
Listen, it comes down to location.
Obviously not, because this place is across the street from a fucking White Castle.
Yeah, but I'm saying the location's got to be doing something for him.
No, the location's terrible.
Well, then how's he getting these customers for $10?
Because he's the only guy that has a product in the neighborhood, and people are fucking traveling.
Then that's the location.
It's not. No. Al.
Right.
There it is, right there. No, the location, Al. Listen to me when I tell you.
Location.
It's a terrible location. It's a terrible location. It's out of the way. For me to go over there is way out of my way.
How far is it from here?
I mean, it's not that far, but you know what I mean? It's out of the way. It's not where I want to be, Yeah, go to the website.
That's the wrong place.
That's the place.
No, that's not what you just said. You said Bushwick Bakery, didn't you?
No, I said no. I can't say the name of it.
Oh.
So
I can't either.
This guy, he was a go to
French baker?
Yeah. Well, he was like a banker. So look, 7 a.m. So he's selling. Go down. Let's see if they have the menu here somewhere. So they sell. So that loaf, look, go up. This one right here, that's like $14, $15. Nice. Go down. Go down. The croissant, I think, is like $5 or $6.
Well, good for him. I'm happy.
Yeah, they sell out every single day. This is like the new way because people,
listen, it's worth it. You got to pay for the guy's time.
Go
There's
down.
a lot of labor involved. Take some.
All right, so you see the baguette?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the baguette's $6, and then go down and see if there's another
must be
price.
saying something like "lie."
That's the guy.
That's the guy.
Yeah.
Looks like you learned in France. We got
Well,
one guy like that
he was a
in New
banker,
Jersey.
a banker,
Yeah.
not a baker,
But he
a
had to
banker.
go somewhere to learn.
He learned, yeah. See. So go all the way up. Go up to the Instagram. Or it's right there.
Really hard to put that.
Let's see if we can find like. Go to the. Just type on the Instagram on the top.
Oh.
Yeah. See. No. Right here.
Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram. Yeah. See if this pops up.
Oh, it just brings us. To
Oh, it just brings you to it. Can we? Well, go to.
It's Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Now go to. Can you go to his main page? Can we see like the pictures?
Yeah.
Go back. Go down. I think it was that. Yeah, there you go. Go to this one.
Right.
So this is like a batard,
Yeah.
I think you call it.
Okay.
So amazing. No commercial yeast, no tricks. So that loaf right there, that costs between $10 and $12, depending on if I have seeds or not. And it's small. It's only this big. But it's nutritious. It's out there. People are willing to.
No commercial yeast, no
Yeah.
trick, quality ingredients, amazing crisp for our bakers, teamwork, and time.
And time. Yeah.
Vegan, flour, water, salt, bread.
Well, those are those are
It
hashtags.
looks too expensive.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely worth the try. It looks good.
I mean, they sell out every day. You know what I mean? I'm around the
Like I said,
neighborhood.
This Italian guy is selling a loaf of bread twice as big as that, probably just as good for $3.50.
It's not just as good though. It's
What could he possibly be doing to make it better
well,
than that?
I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier about like the nutrition and like
Well,
the
he's saying
lactic
it's
acid and the
flour.
low
I would
glycemic
try it.
index.
But it says
If
flour.
you make a dough, right, and you put a ton of yeast in it and you're baking it within like 3 to 6 hours after you mix the dough, you can't create lactic acid.
I'll tell you something off the record.
Yeah.
I can't tell you here,
Okay.
but
All right, we got to get the fuck out of here, by the way.
It comes down to two things. Well, I hear everything
Yeah.
you're saying. I don't like to overproof the dough because that's called the hot load.
Yeah.
But it comes down to when are you going to eat it and when is the product going to meet the oven, and you still want to have a good desired result. When are
Right.
they going to eat it? But as far as the basic recipe that I was taught, if the dough rises twice, as a baker, you're done. Now, if the dough starts overblowing on you, that's another issue. You can go back and you can pat the dough down, or you could take a dough docker and dock it again.
Sure.
Putting that yeast in there,
But if you cut your yeast in half, it's going to take maybe not double the time, but almost double the time to rise. If you cut it in half
that's when
again.
you're talking about your dough management.
Right.
Follow me? And that's when I tell you about the finished product. But the things that I'm trying to tell you, they're kind of secret, like baker secrets. And I don't really want to blab them out to everybody because then everybody will know my secret.
Right.
But I know how to manage my dough, and I know what I'm shooting for. And I don't know if my father, God rest his soul, would be happy if I told everybody that.
Well, on that note, we got to get the fuck out of here. And guess what, motherfuckers? I'm getting the secret. How you doing? It was great having you all. Thank you so much,
Nino
Al.
wants the
I know
secret.
we're getting a fucking. I'm getting the fucking secret. You're in Brooklyn right now. You're not leaving till I get the secret.
What's the secret?
But we'll see you all later, and thank you so much, Al. We're definitely having you on soon. Also, one more thing. Let me get the
Nino stood right
double.
there till
Let
he
me do the
was getting
double
the
cam.
secret out of me.
All right,
Why?
so listen up. Listen up, people. All right, no, put the camera on me again. Put the camera on me again. So listen up, people. And then you're going to switch to Al. Listen up, people. If you want to see me and Al go to all of his old school friends' places and make videos of these fucking
Old-timers.
gabagools, I'm going to call them the Gabagool crew.
Jujus.
Okay? From fucking Jersey. Comment, like, share this thing, write us, let us know you want it, and we're going to get it done. I love you, Al Santillo. And we're fucking out of here. Bye-bye, everybody.
We'll be back. Don't
We'll be
worry.
back.
We'll be back before the sun rises again.
Facts. That was good. That was like the best ending we've ever had.